this budget policy workshop meeting to order. Today is Thursday, February 26th. Ms. Trevino, would you call the roll? Oh, it is exactly 5:30, yay. Ms. Trevino, would you call the roll?
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mr. Basel.
Here.
Ms. Garza. Mayor Houston.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Mendoza.
Here.
Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez. We have a quorum present.
Okay, this is usually our citizen comment time period. However, no one has signed up, so we will continue on to item 1.
Yes. Receive a staff presentation, hold discussion regarding the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget policy for the city of San Marcos and provide direction to the city manager.
Ms. Reyes?
Mayor, council, and members of our community, tonight's budget policy workshop represents the next step in our annual budget cycle and ongoing discussion. We will have several more opportunities in the months ahead to revisit the topics raised this evening, refine council direction, and respond to changing conditions. San Marcos has a very deliberate and structured budget process outlined in our city charter. That structure ensures transparency, accountability, and multiple points for policy direction before adoption. It is designed to give council and the community visibility into how decisions are shaped over time. Last month, at your visioning session, you had a productive discussion about priorities for the next several years and reviewed the strategic plan to ensure it reflects the direction you want to set for the community. That work provides the foundation for everything we will discuss tonight. This evening, we shift into the phase of the process where council establishes the parameters for staff to use in developing the proposed budget. The guidance you provide now on tax rate philosophy, debt capacity, compensation, service expectations, and funding options will shape what we bring forward for consideration later this summer. Our process also includes regular check-ins to keep council and the public informed about how those parameters are translating into numbers. Between now and August, we will continue refining assumptions and sharing updates so you are well informed by the time the proposed budget is presented. I'm going to add to that the community will also be well informed as we are going to have some town halls and also have some budget videos as council talked about during your visioning session. Each budget cycle is dynamic. Economic conditions shift, legislative actions affect revenues and expenditures, service demands evolve. The process leading to adoption will ebb and flow as we respond to these changing circumstances. That adaptability is part of responsible fiscal management. The fiscal year 2027 budget policy discussion is not just about numbers. It is about the kind of city we want to be, how we enhance community safety, maintain essential services, support economic vitality, and preserve the quality of life that makes San Marcos special. We are entering this cycle at a time of transition. On one hand, we continue to see growth and opportunity. Economic development investments are beginning to show results. New commercial activity strengthens our tax base and diversifies our revenue bases. On the other hand, we're navigating a changing landscape, particularly in EMS, community safety demands, expiring federal funding, uncertainty with the future legislative session, inflationary pressures, and slower growth in key revenue sources such as sales tax. At the same time, the cost of maintaining current service levels continues to rise. The reality is this: maintaining the same level of service costs more each year. If revenues grow slowly while expenses grow steadily, structural gaps emerge. Addressing those gaps requires intentional and difficult decisions. This workshop is about setting the guardrails for those decisions. We will discuss maintaining a structurally balanced budget, protecting long-term financial stability, supporting our workforce so we can continue delivering high-quality services, and determining how to prioritize limited resources in alignment with council's strategic goals. Fiscal responsibility and community investment are not competing values. They are two sides of the same obligation we have to the people we serve. Tonight is about clarity. Clarity about where we are financially, not just for the coming year, but over the next several years. We will walk through what the numbers are telling us, what revenues are trending upward, what revenues are flattening, where inflation is having an impact, and about how long-term obligations such as debt service and capital project maintenance shape our flexibility. It's also about clarity around the assumptions behind the forecast. Every projection depends on reasonable assumptions. How revenues will perform, how personnel costs may increase, how demand may evolve, and how economic development contributes to the tax base. Being transparent about those assumptions allows everyone to understand both the opportunities and the risks embedded in the outlook. This discussion makes the trade-offs visible. Resources are finite. Decisions about compensation, staffing levels, capital investment, social services support, infrastructure maintenance, and tax rate components are interconnected. When we prioritize one area, we are necessarily limiting capacity in another. Understanding those connections is essential to making informed policy choices. Council's guidance is critical at this stage. Staff will build the proposed budget within the framework that you establish. Early direction allows us to develop a budget that reflects your policy objectives and the community's expectations. You will also see the real impacts of constrained funding on police investigations, library services, park staffing, and other services residents rely on every day. These are not abstract figures. They represent service levels our community experiences directly. You are also aware of the EMS environment and that is evolving. That conversation is central to this policy discussion as well. As operating structures shift, we must evaluate how to sustain emergency response in a way that is both responsible and resilient. Economic development remains a key part of our long-term solution. Expanding and diversifying our tax base reduces pressure on property taxpayers and strengthens our ability to fund core services. But those investments require discipline, strategic alignment, and public-private partnerships. The decisions ahead require balance between service expectations and fiscal constraints, between short-term needs and long-term sustainability, and between community investment and affordability. Tough decisions are never easy, but making them deliberately, transparently, and proactively is how we protect the long-term stability of San Marcos. Our responsibility is not only to deliver services today, but to ensure this community remains financially resilient for the next generation. With that, we look forward to walking you through the fiscal year 2027 budget policy presentation and engaging in your questions and direction. We have quite a bit of content to cover tonight, and we ask that we are able to get through until we get to the council direction slides that are included throughout the presentation. I'm now going to turn it over to Finance Director John Locke. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reyes. Thank you, Council, Mayor and Council. There we go. An agenda to what we're going to cover this evening. We're going to start with the budget calendar and go over the all the different key events that will take place as we go through the fiscal year 27 budget process. We're going to look at the council strategic goals and go over the budget process, and then have a financial overview of all the different major operating funds and discuss some of the parameters and assumptions for the budget policy. And there's some decision points for each of the funds that we have for City Council to provide guidance. First, we'll just take a look at the general budget calendar. You see, we've already had visioning, so right now we're at the budget policy workshop. The decisions and the guidance council provides this evening, we will revise the budget policy statement, and that council will consider that next month on March 31st, adopting that budget policy statement. Prior to that being adopted, there will be a public hearing, so people who want to comment on the budget policy statement will be able to do so. The information that is provided this evening in a summarized version will be shared with the Neighborhood Commission in April. And April 30th is a key date for us. That's when we receive the preliminary roll. Property tax is the largest revenue source to the general fund, and up until April, we're just based off of estimates, of assumptions that staff is making internally. So that's a big date for us to actually get the preliminary values. And it's important to keep in mind that we don't get the certified roll until July as well. There's often a big change between preliminary and certified roll. This past year, we lost nearly $1 billion of value between the preliminary and certified roll, and that's mostly attributable just to people protesting their property values. And so while we do have a number, it's not the finite number until July. Throughout the summer, though, there will be 2 budget workshops, so one in May and one in June. And the proposed budget will be submitted to City Council in August. And on that same evening, City Council will set the maximum tax rate. So that just creates a ceiling for the tax rate for fiscal year 27. Then during the month of September, there'll be multiple public hearings on both the tax rate and the budget. And City Council will adopt the budget and set the tax rate on September 15th. These are a list of City Council strategic goals. We include them in the presentation because all the budget, all the activity within the budget, every expenditure should point back to City Council strategic goals. And as we begin to discuss the budget, these are some of the common considerations that we had across all of the funds. The budget must be aligned with City Council's strategic goals, as we just discussed. We'll continue revenue forecasting based on historical and recent trends. For example, if you look at our property tax revenue, if you went on historical trends, our 3-year average is closer to 7%. And we know with the current environment that we're in, we can't assume next year that the growth we're going to see in property tax roll is going to grow by 7%. So we do take into consideration recent trends with that. We adjust operating expense forecasts for inflation. So when you see these forecasts, they have been adjusted for inflation. And that helps us maintain current service levels because, as Ms. Reyes pointed out, the cost of providing services is going to increase every year, whether we add to it or enhance that program or not. Just to provide the same level of service, it's going to cost more money with inflation. We incorporate benefits from economic development, and there's a couple recent economic developments that are included in the budget, and we'll talk about those a little later. We confirm support of the previously adopted council resolution regarding compensation philosophy. We prioritize core services, be diligent in managing the available capacity, which is increasingly important in a resource restraint environment, monitor and respond to changes in revenues and expenses. And the adopted budget must be balanced, and it should be structurally balanced. And this is something that we discussed a lot during the budget process last year. And just to touch on that again, a structurally balanced budget is a budget where ongoing revenues are funded entirely by where ongoing expenses are funded entirely by ongoing revenues, rather than using one-time monetary sources such as fund balance. So it would be similar to a home budget where you have a savings account, and if your rent and all of your grocery and utility bills exceed what you're bringing in your paycheck each month and you're using your savings account, at some point that savings account runs out of money. So that's why it's important to have a structurally balanced budget. The goal is to ensure that the city does not spend beyond its long-term means. Having a structurally balanced budget it helps ensure long-term sustainability. It also helps with service stability. It helps maintain consistent delivery of essential service to residents without the risk of any kind of drastic cuts. if there are small fluctuations in revenues or expenses increase more than projected. It creates economic resilience. Cities with structurally balanced budgets are able to respond to economic downturns or major fiscal shocks. And a good example of this was in fiscal year '24, when our sales tax decreased over 3%, or it was over $1 million. And the city was able to respond to that and not draw down our reserves by the amount. And it also helps with credit worthiness. Maintaining the structural balance is a sign of good financial management, and this is positive to the rating agencies for our bond rating. And the last thing to point out is it creates intergenerational equity, so ensures that today's costs are not shifted to future generations. This is a look at the municipal cost index. It's really similar to the consumer price index, only it's focused more on the cost that a city would see its cost going up. It takes in components of the construction cost index, the consumer price index, and the producer price index. So you can see over the years how it's trended. You can certainly see during the post-COVID when everything shot up, and where it's landed right now. So this is shown as of October 1st of each one of those years. So that's just the start of our fiscal year. So in 2024, it was 1.3%. And we have a box there because on that day, the general fund departments for that year weren't able to increase their budgets. We had them remain flat. So that was essentially a 1% budget reduction for them. And then for the following fiscal year 26, the inflation was 2.8%. And departments not only held their budget flat, but we also asked them to cut $100,000 collectively. So in total, that was, when you factor in the inflation and that $100,000 cut, that's a $675,000 cut over the past 2 years that the departments have had to absorb in their operational budgets. Now, going from an all funds look and just looking at the general fund, it's our largest operating fund, and it accounts for all the resources that aren't required to be accounted for in a specific fund of its own. On the left-hand side are the primary revenue sources, and you can see in the bluish color, that's property taxes. That makes up the largest percent of the general fund's revenue. In the orange color is sales tax, makes up 32%. Franchise fees make up 12%, and that is both internal. The water, wastewater fund and electric fund pay franchise fees, as well as external. The cable companies and electric companies pay franchise fees. And you have a support services allocation, and that ties to an expense that I'll touch on in a moment, and then all other revenue sources make up 15%. And on the right-hand side is all of the support service or core services of the general fund. So the police budget is the largest at 24%. Support services make up 22%. And there's an asterisk there. I want to point out of all the different departments that are included in that support services. You can see it's the city manager, city clerk, city council, communications, finance, legal, human resources, engineering, facilities, and fleet. So all of those departments are what makes up support services. In total, their budget is $27 million, and it's all paid from the general fund. The general, and then their costs are allocated to all the other funds based on the benefit received from the department. So the revenue that I touched on, the support service allocation that was made up 7%, that is the other funds moving the revenue in to pay for their use of those support service departments. And then you can also see in green is fire. That's makes up 16%, and so on. We have community development, other public safety services, and public works, parks and recreation, and neighborhood enhancement. So those are all the major departments in the general fund. So now we'll go into a discussion about the largest revenue source in the general fund, property tax. This slide has been updated. The original slide only had the chart on the left, which is the no homestead exemption, which if you had a rental property or a business, that it would be accurate for that type of property. On the right-hand side is a homestead, so this is your single family with a homestead exemption on it. And what it shows is for every dollar of property tax, which taxing unit gets, does that dollar go to? So for every dollar on the non-homestead side, which is for rental or business property, you have 49 cents would go to the school district, 32 cents comes to the city of San Marcos, 17 cents goes to Hays County, and it's hard to see, but 2 cents goes to the road district. To the right of that is just what someone with a homestead exemption living in San Marcos. The 38 cents goes to San Marcos School District as well as San Marcos. And then you can see the Hays County gets 21 cents and 3 cents goes to the school district. So of the property tax dollars that the city receives, the debt service and tax increment financing is set aside first. And then whatever's remaining is what the city has to operate on. So if you look at the dollar bill below, 35 cents, when you look at for every dollar of property tax, 22 cents goes to debt, 13 cents goes to tax increment financing, which just means that it's restricted for a particular use. So 35 cents of every dollar goes to those two purposes, and what's remaining at 65 cents is what the city has to operate on. This is just a historical look at the city's taxable value, and this is our net taxable value. So the tax increment financing has already been removed from this, and what's remaining is what is the value that can be taxed for operations and for debt. And it also has a history of our tax rate from 2018 through 2026. And a couple of things to point out is that you can see post-COVID, the 21, 22, 23, where the values really grew a lot. You're on the far right-hand side, the percent change, you have 12, 11, 16, 17%, where values were really growing. And then now, the past couple of years, the market's correcting itself. So in 25, we had 4.5%, and in 26, it's 0.7. And if you adjust that for the three properties that the city has that the Housing Finance Corporations purchased, it would actually be negative. It was negative just less than 1% would have been the growth. So even though, when you look at our three-year average I touched on was over 7%, we can't assume that we're going to see that in next fiscal year. This is a look at the new property that was added to the tax roll across that same time period. And you can see the 3 and 5 year average is in the $400 million range. And the very last column is the new property tax revenue generated from that new value. And you can see this most recent year in fiscal year 26, it was well below that average. So when we look at the new value growth, if it wasn't for the new value growth on 25 and 26, the numbers I showed on the previous slide would have been negative because the reappraised growth did decrease year over year in both the past two fiscal years. It was this new value that got added to the roll that actually allowed us to have a positive movement in the valuation. To the far right, that chart breaks down the type of new value that was added between residential and commercial. And this could be this could be a new single-family house, or it could be some kind of improvement that, like somebody added on a garage or a swimming pool or something, that would also show up in this. So the total number of improvements for residential, you see, is 636 for 176 million. So on average, each one of those improvements was $276,000 of new taxable value added to the city. On the commercial side, there were 27 of them with $67 million total value. So on average, just under $2.5 million added to the tax roll for every commercial development. So you see that at the bottom, what that is just bringing to light is that for every commercial development is equal to 9 houses in this particular tax year. That fluctuates year to year, but in this year, that's what it turned out to be. That's why oftentimes we'll say that residential doesn't necessarily pay for itself, that it's oftentimes subsidized by commercial when you look at the cost of providing services to residential and the revenue received from it. This slide is just showing a couple metrics that we track internally to try and keep an eye on where property values are headed. Two of the metrics we use, Zillow has an average value of homes, and Texas A&M University Real Estate Center has a median price of homes sold. And so you can see the blue and the orange are those metrics that are being followed. And all of the numbers on this are negative, right? Because they're all showing negative year-over-year changes. What's in green is the reappraisal values from the certified roll. So you see it's also negative. What we're seeing by those two metrics, and we use December because at the whatever change in value happened through December, it's the value as of January 1 is what the appraisal district uses to assess. So that's the value that's used to provide the city with the taxable value. So that's the reason that we use December. But if you look at, based on where we're headed, we're estimating that we're going to be about 1% short or 1% decrease on reappraised value. And 1% is about $102 million of value. And that equates to about $660,000 of revenue. And so, and actually, one thing I did want to point out on that slide is if you looked on the, when we added the, on the previous slide where it showed the new property value that was added to the tax roll, we would need at least $100 million of new value to be added in order to break even, to stay flat. So, and anything above that is what would generate more revenue than what were included in the forecast. Now, the next couple of slides go through a discussion on property tax exemptions. And we have sales tax in here because the city does have a sales tax that's used for property tax relief. And so in addition to a general city sales tax, cities can have adopt other local sales tax rate for specific purposes. An example of that would be for economic development. You probably have heard before a type A or type B, or property tax relief, and that's what the city has. The total sales tax rate is limited within a county to 2%. The voters approved a 1% city sales tax rate in 1968, and the voters approved a 1% additional sales tax rate for property tax relief in 1988. 0.5% is for the city and 0.5% is for the county. So in terms of the ceiling, we've already hit the ceiling. We can't go any higher. We're at the 2%. And just for perspective of what that 0.5% does in the city, in fiscal year 26, the sales tax for property tax relief reduced the tax rate by almost 15 cents. So our tax rate, instead of being 65 cents, would have had to have been 80 cents to generate the same amount of revenue. So changes can be made to the sales tax rate. It does require an election. Voters can adopt in 8% increments, subject to that 2% ceiling that we're already at. And that's important to note because any change in the city's sales tax rate would negatively impact operations in the general fund because we're already at the maximum amount. We're already using all of that money to operate on. Out of the 1,175 cities in Texas that have a sales tax rate, over 350 of them, or 30% of them, have the sales tax or property tax relief like the city does. You have around 16% of them that have a type A, which is for economic development that is more limited to manufacturing or industrial development. And 44% of them have a type B for economic development, which adds on quality of life improvement projects. The city's not able to do this though because we're already at that maximum amount. This is a list of the homestead exemptions that City Council has approved over the years. Most recently in 2022, the exemption for 65 years of age and disabled was increased from $25,000 to $35,000, and there was a new general homestead exemption for $15,000. For the disabled and 65 years of age, they also get the $15,000 for a total of $50,000 exemption. And this slide shows the change in those exemptions over the years. The most recent change in 22 became effective in 23. So you can see the jump in fiscal year 22. The total amount in revenue, it was $300,000, and that went up to $1 million. So that is the amount of savings that the taxpayer had in their tax bills, and it's less revenue that the city brought in. And over the years that has grown, in fiscal year 26, it was $1.5 million. The green color that you see in the background is just that's the total value that is exempted. So in fiscal year 22, it was $53 million. That was the value that was exempted from being taxed by the city. And most recently in fiscal year 26, that had grown to $238 million. And as you move to the right, you get to see what the forecasted amount is, and that's just based on historical trends we're seeing. So we're estimating that it's going to grow by around $100,000 to $200,000 a year. There are two components to the tax rate. There's the operations component and the debt component. And we covered a little bit earlier that debt comes off the top. And if the tax rate remains the same, any change in one of these will impact the other. So in this illustration, it's showing that if the debt rate increases, then the operations rate has to decrease. That is the way that the two interact with one another. And both are equally important. 1 cent on the tax rate is equal to about $876,000. And this is what that 1 penny would buy on the operations side. You have 5 police officers, including their vehicles, uniforms, equipment, nearly half the cost to run the animal shelter, almost the entire code compliance division, 7.5 lane miles of resurfacing, which is about 1.5 neighborhoods, a third of the library's budget, or 6 firefighters and the equipment. So on the debt side, $876,000, the value of a penny, will pay debt service on $11 million. And so that $11 million can buy a new fire station. It could do the Old Ranch 12 improvements from Craddock to Holland, the Quail Creek and Riverfront Parks improvement, Hopkins Street improvements from Moore to Guadalupe. And it's the $11 million is the cost of a new water tank. The next couple of slides are going to talk about the debt rate a little more. And these are the underlying assumptions and the forecasted numbers that are going to be on the following slides. It's going to assume that our tax rate remains the same at 65.15 cents, that the annual issuance of certificates of obligation for the capital improvement plan is $10 million, and that but we also will have equipment replacement of around, on average, about $2 million a year. And these are for things that aren't the capital projects, things like a fire engine or radios that are used across all the departments, or information technology infrastructure. So assuming those two levels of debt issuance each year, this slide shows the impacts to the debt component of the tax rate. The first column shows the total debt service that is needed. The next column over shows what capacity the city has at our current tax rate. Our current tax rate, the total tax rate is the 65.15. The debt component of that is 16.47. So it's just showing how much capacity we have with that 16.47. And then in the box, it shows whether we're bringing in more money than needed, which you'll see the parentheses around it, or we don't have enough money, which is shown as a positive number. So you can see over the next 4 years, the fluctuation to where by the time you get to 2030 is about 1 cent that we need more on the debt side. So that would mean that we're shifting a penny from operations over to debt, which in today's dollars is about the $876,000. This just shows the trend in the split between our operations component of the tax rate, which is shown in blue, and the debt component of the tax rate that is in gray. You can see that as operational costs have grown, it's really constrained the capital side, the capital improvement side, or the debt component of the tax rate. If you go back another couple years, it was actually 50-50 at one point, and it's just slowly shrunk to where now we're at about a 75-25. And during the last budget process, City Council sets in the budget policy to stay at 30% or below on the debt side. So with our forecast, we would stay below that 30% level that council approved. This compares the city's property tax rate split to our peer cities, just to give City Council an idea of where the other cities are. You can see that there's the low is the city of Austin that has a 20% dedicated to debt service, and the high is city of Georgetown has 68% dedicated to debt service. The average line there is for operations, so on average, about 59% of the tax rate is used for operations, which would mean about 41% is for debt. So when you look at from a debt leverage perspective, the city is on the lower side comparatively across our peer cities. Now we're going to shift into talking about the second largest revenue generator in the general fund, sales tax. And this first slide just shows historical collections, and it also includes the forecast of where we think we're headed. We track our sales tax in two different buckets. We look at what we call the base, which is really everything except for outlet malls, and that you see in the blue, and then the outlet malls are in green. There's a black dotted line that you can see that goes across the screen, and that is the percent that the outlet malls are making up of the total sales tax. So if you look in 2020, it was at 30%, and most recently in the adopted 2026 budget, it was at 22%. And that is a good sign that the city's reliance on the outlet mall is shrinking as our sales tax base is growing. A couple of things to point out on this slide is the adopted budget in 2026 was 39.7 million, and it was lower than 3 previous fiscal year actuals at, $40 million. So the city lost about 3 years of sales tax growth, during that time period. There was one taxpayer during that time period that lost $3 million in terms of the amount of sales tax that they were paying to the city. It decreased by $3 million. So when you think of that, and to think that we only went down by 300,000 during that same time period, that the city's sales tax base is growing. It was just the impact of that one sales taxpayer and the impact that they had on the city. As you move out to the right, the underlying assumption is that we'll see about a 1.8% on average growth, and you can see how sales tax increase over the years, assuming that 1.8% growth. This slide, it shows the rolling 12-month average, and it's good to look at a rolling 12-month average because it takes the spikes from year to year out, and so, for example, what it's doing when you look at December of 25, it's looking at January to December, the total sales tax collected during that 12-month period, and is comparing it to the total sales tax collected from January to December of 24. And so for that one particular period, it grew by 1.2%. So that's what it's tracking, and you can see where we've been. November of 24, all the way up through September of 25, we were negative when you look at that. The good thing is we have been positive, and we've trended positive since September of 25 on. These are our 10 largest sales tax payers, with Mathis Lumber being the largest, and then you see Gucci America being number 10. To the right of that is the industry segment, or it's the North American Industry Classification System. And as you can see, you see a lot of 9s there. There's a legend down at the bottom that tells you what each one of those numbers are. Those 9s are retail trade. So that's where most of our sales tax comes from. Our largest sales tax payer is actually in the wholesale trade. That's the number 8. And they provide building materials to large apartment complexes. It also shows, so if you look at the last fiscal year 25, fiscal year to date sales tax collections were 3.2 million. Currently, they're 3.1 million, so just under 3.2. So it's basically, these top 10 have brought in about the same amount of property or sales tax revenue this year as they did last year. And when you look at the total fiscal year to date revenue, these 10 businesses have brought in 21% of the total revenue. Okay, so now that we've covered the two major revenue sources, just to touch on again the visioning forecast. These were all those underlying assumptions that we shared when we were during visioning, that the property tax is adjusted for the new personal property tax law. That was House Bill 9 that increased the business personal property, and it reduced the city's property tax revenue by $450,000. So that is factored into this. And it also assumes that we're going to continue to see the declining reappraised value that will be offset by new value being added to the tax roll. And so we're estimating just real flat from a property tax perspective. On the sales tax perspective, we're average growth of 1.8%, and that does include growth from Buc-ee's and H-E-B. And the other revenues are adjusted 3% annually, and that's just following City Council's direction. Each one of those are evaluated based on current trends. On the expense side, there is an average of 3% for non-civil service, 5% for civil service, and to meet the meet and confer agreements, what's already called out in the meet and confer agreements, of an increase to personnel costs. And we've also assumed that the expiring federal funding that we're going to talk about a little later is absorbed into the general fund. So this forecast does include all of that. And it also includes, as you can see, that equipment replacement program that I shared earlier. And this shows a legacy software allocation. That's something that we're going to talk about a little later too. One of the things that's not up here is that it also included the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant, or the SAFER grant. I'm used to the acronym, so I just have to look down to see what it's actually called, which was roughly $1 million. That was our match for that grant. That was still included with the visioning forecast that we showed. So with all of that, those assumptions, this is what the forecast looked like. In 27, it was 4 million short, and then you can see how that grows as you go in 28, 29, and 30, where it hits $15 million. So, you know, if you see an X there, it means that we're not balanced. If there's a check mark, it means that we are balanced. This slide was updated, and it's really just, we wanted to call out that fiscal year 24, 25, and 26 have been revised to pull out the one-time expenses that we use our fund balance in excess of policy to cover. So it's just been revised to call that out. One other thing to point out on this is if you follow the red dotted line, that is the trend for the total expenses, and the black dotted line is the trend for the revenues. So in a perfect world, you would want to see the black above the red, and that's not what we're seeing long-term here, because expenses are outpacing revenues. So there have been a couple changes to that, and so we're just update City Council with those changes. First, and they've really been offsetting changes. So revenues have decreased by $1 million. There was no changes in property tax, no changes in sales tax. As we went through and evaluated all the different revenue sources in the general fund, a lot of those resulted in reducing some of those the revenue estimates, the largest of which were building permits. That was adjusted down by about $500,000. That made up the biggest amount of that $1 million. And on the expense side, it also decreased by $1 million. We removed the city's match for that SAFER grant that we just talked about, and everything else remained the same. Just important to point out that this does not account for the retirement incentive program that is currently underway, and it does not account for any additional funding for emergency medical service or personnel adjustments for the police staffing study that was recently completed. So this forecast does not take any of that into account. And just making those revisions, since you had a decrease in expenses equal to the decrease in revenues, it really just offset for the most part. It has the same financial outlook. We're still looking at about $4 million short in the general fund for fiscal year 27. This is some of the things that the city's doing to address that $4 million gap. We've continued with the managed hiring program and are assessing each vacancy to confirm whether that position is still necessary and needs to be filled. One of the things we haven't touched on, personnel is the largest expense in the general fund. It takes people to do the type of services, provide the services that the general fund performs. So, out of the $120 million budget, over $80 million of that is personnel. The retirement incentive program is currently underway, and that is aimed to reduce overall personnel costs. We're doing a fleet lease analysis to verify that it's still the most effective way to manage the city's fleet. We're identifying underutilized vehicles as part of that analysis to see if there's opportunities to reduce city fleet. And We're going to manage temporary employee process by bringing it in-house versus hiring through an agency to reduce costs. When you do temp employees through an agency, there's a markup that you're paying to that agency. We're looking at, we're in the process of, over the next 4 years, replacing all of the city radios because they're reaching end of life. And so we're also doing an analysis to make sure that the radios are right sized, the number so that we're not replacing radios that aren't needed. And for fiscal year 27, we're also reviewing the parks and library fees for cost recovery. This is a list of those of items that departments requested during fiscal year 26 that there wasn't enough capacity in the general fund to include. The first few requests from fire at 19 at $2.6 million, down to communications at 1 at 48,000. Those are all personnel requests. So there was a total of 47 of those, and at a cost of $5.3 million. And then there were 3 different operating requests that would have been $113,000. So in total, there were 50 requests over $5 million that where departments requested it, but there wasn't enough capacity in the budget to include it. The next 3 or 4 slides is really breaking out some of the service and program level impacts that departments are experiencing over the past couple of years, whether that be from inflation, from where their budgets haven't been able to grow to keep pace with inflation, or from the managed hiring program that we have in place right now. The first is the city manager's office, and they have deferred hiring the community support specialist position, and that will impact the speed and service level of the Office of Community Support and Resource Navigation. In finance, there were some unfilled vacancies from some retirements that has shifted additional work to the staff that is still there, and including the purchasing manager. So some of the projects that finance was wanting to get done, we haven't been able to focus on. We were in the process of amending the purchasing policy, as well as implementing a local vendor participation program, trying to get local vendors to submit bids so that city can do more business with local vendors. So some of that type of work we've had to set aside so that we can, because of the duties being shifted to the other employees. In the library, there's limited to no coverage in the children's area in the library. They were unable to hire additional staff to ensure the adequate staffing at all hours, and they were not able to purchase some automation software, which leads to longer lines for the checkout, longer wait periods for community or reference assistance, and items not being processed to go out on the shelves in a timely manner. One other thing to note in the library that they noted was that the shift of the additional work onto the staff that is there is leading to burnout amongst their staff. In Public Works, they've had a reduction in street maintenance and resurfacing. This is a reduction in sidewalk maintenance and ADA improvements. This slide is a slide of where communications has shared their some of the challenges that they have had. And just to touch on some of them, under the managed hiring program, they've been unable to fill 4 of their critical positions. The vacancies have cut their department in half when you look at it from a total FTE count. Yet the standard of work and the amount of the work that the department is doing remains the same. The loss of their entire marketing team has had the greatest impact on the department. There's no dedicated staff to manage the website, social media, marketing outreach, or the design needs. the media requests, have risen, and they don't have the staff to keep pace with all that additional work. The 3 communication specialists have absorbed those additional responsibilities on top of their original responsibilities, leading to overwork, burnout, and declining morale amongst that department. Without a dedicated marketing and social media team, branding and messaging have become inconsistent across the departments, and day-to-day demands have left little time to implement organization-wide communication standards, resulting in longer turnaround times, delayed training, and slowed compliance efforts, especially as web content updates must now meet the revised ADA requirements by April. The ARPA funding for the council agenda translation ends in December 26, and that's just something that we would actually be discussing in a few slides. And while critical communication needs are still being met, ongoing staffing shortages and budget constraints are diminishing service quality, compliance readiness, and strategic capacity and staff sustainability. This is a list of some of the impact the fire department has put together. And they've eliminated the Citizens Fire Academy and the fire department open house and the kickoff to the Fire Prevention Month. So the external funding for the Junior Fire Academy and the clown shows to all the elementary schools has ended. As the current donation funding can cover these programs for a little longer, but the department's budget won't be able to fund it in future years. So at some point, those programs would be eliminated as well. The department has also absorbed, this is an example of some of the costs where inflation is increasing their operational costs, but their budget hasn't moved with that inflation. So you have the increase for radio service, the parts and repair prices for various vendors for fire apparatus. They gave an example of aluminum ladders have increased by 40%. Uniform prices have increased. There is recent legislation, Senate Bill 1545, that will require the city to offer an annual medical examination to each firefighter. So that will be an additional cost, and we're working on estimating what that cost will be. In parks, Parks has a use agreement with the school district, so that's minimized some of the impact to parks. Speaking to just the vacancies from the managed hiring program at the activity center, it's led to operational disruption. It's led to safety concerns. There's some, typically they have 2 staff members present at all times to ensure quick response to emergencies and maintain a safe environment. And so there's an increased risk and liability there when they only have one person available, they can't have that other staff member. There's reduced staffing impacts the member experience, at least the longer wait times and potential program disruptions. Employee well-being, the current arrangement places additional strain on staff, increasing the risk of burnout or turnover. And after hours events make this even more challenging because when they host evening or special events, the strain on staff is even greater. The events require additional coverage, which further pulls staff from their regular duties. This is a list of some of the challenges that the planning department has experienced. It's when, with being in a reduced staff environment, they're still doing time-consuming, high-profile cases, so it's taking longer to turn those around. They have a high number of long-range and special projects, tracking that's needed for long-range implementation of projects, increased attention for the conditional use permits and enforcement of those. On the building side, you had a chief building official and permits manager workload has increased because they have an assistant director vacancy. So all the things that that assistant director was doing was added to both of those positions. And at the same time, they're seeing an 82% increase in inspections since 2015, 100% in single-family home issuance since 2015, and 48% increase in total permits issued since that same time period. On the community development side, the community development block grant administrator vacancy is vacant. And so some of the duties for the Human Services Advisory Board and CDBG are now with the department manager due to that vacancy. So that is going to delay progress on the Strategic Housing Action Plan. And that takes us to police. The ARPA-funded mental health clinician ends December of '26. This is a position that would be eliminated. That is on one of the slides as part of that. It's absorbing that cost is being funded by ARPA is included in that forecast with that $4 million estimated shortfall. Also, due to limited staffing, the Criminal Investigations Division was able to investigate only 27% of reported crimes. Crimes that are typically not assigned for investigation include a list there of harassment, assaults not involving family violence, cases with uncooperative victims, credit card abuse, cryptocurrency-related offenses, and certain retail thefts. Their professional development has been cut by 35% as they're just focusing on bare minimum requirements. And this is due to the fiscal cuts as well as the backfill cost. In order to send somebody to professional development, someone else, is going to have to be patrolling during that time. So there's backfill costs there, as well as the meals and travel expenses. The grant-funded training is being denied due to those backfill costs and the related meals and travel expenses. There's reduced memberships to professional associations. The community outreach has been cut by 41%. The Citizen Police Academy is canceled from 2027 to 2030. The Trunk or Treat, which is the largest annual outreach event, is also canceled during that same time period. They have also eliminated meals for the annual volunteer appreciation dinner and minimized annual awards banquet that recognizes community members and departmental staff. They're also no longer taking reports for non-injury accidents. So that takes us to where we're just going to discuss that the general fund is, fundamentally a people-driven fund. We touched on that earlier, funding the services that our community relies on. And in November of 2023, City Council approved the employee compensation philosophy statement that you see on the screen. And the statement says that the city is committed to attracting, engaging, and rewarding a diverse and multi-generational workforce by offering career progression opportunities and a total rewards package, including competitive compensation and benefits in a purposeful work life. And it goes on to say how we are going to do that. If you look on the chart below, in fiscal year 2022, that is when Ms. Reyes, with City Council's approval, began to really invest in employees. And you can see the change in the citywide vacancy rate, where it hit a peak in 22 of 15%, and now it's down around 8%. We've definitely seen a lot of improvement with turnover. And that takes us to the decision points for the general fund. Would you like me to read them, Mayor, to start it off?
I'll go ahead and read them.
Okay.
Decision points, questions, decisions council needs to make. Keep tax rate between the current rate and voter approval rate. Keep the debt component of tax rate less than or equal to 30%. Include COLA for non-civil service of 3%, which is 1.3 million. Some notations there about meet and confer. For those of you watching at home, meet and confer is our police and fire contracts. Also, council guidance, there's some things on the next slide. But we can start with this one. These are not official votes. This is giving your preference so that staff knows which route to take from here. And so that they can, for our next budget meeting, provide us the results of what these decisions would be to a certain extent, as much as we can before we get that certified rolled in July. So, I will need to go around the table, or you can give me your preference on the first one, keep tax rate between current rate and voter approval rate. And Mr. Gonzalez has his hand up. Mr. Gonzalez?
So I just had a quick question about the rates. So we don't have them calculated yet, right? Or even a projection. So we're just speaking theoretically when we say the current rate and voter approval rates, whatever that rate ends up being.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it would just be that the rates that typically come into play is the no new revenue rate, and that is the revenue that would, or that's the rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as in the prior fiscal year
Right.
on the same properties. So that's what is referred to as a no new revenue rate. Then the current rate is obviously, that is the rate that, where the city is right now, 6515. The voter approval rate, it allows for a 3.5% growth in the, from the no new revenue rate that's calculated. So it allows some growth for inflationary costs.
No, yeah, definitely. I understand, I guess, what the rates are, or like what they mean. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, sir, you're not.
Where we had already projected what the numbers were going to be. But I guess to go ahead and answer your question, Mayor, so that you can move on. I personally would be very resistant to go above the no new revenue rate. But I mean, I guess once we get closer to what the numbers actually are, that could change.
Okay, and I'm just going to read what they were last year, where we started with the tax rate of 60.30. The voter approval rate at that point was 69.41. The no new revenue rate was 62.78, and we landed, as Mr. Locke has said, at 65.15. But he's right, we're not going to know exactly what those numbers are at this point. But there's also, y'all didn't ask about the no new revenue rate, but this is this is the rate. We can't go above the voter approval rate without election, correct?
Correct, and thank you for adding that so that people know that as well. If you
Yeah.
exceed the voter approval rate, it forces an automatic election.
The voter approval rate is not a rate that voters have already approved other than through the election of us.
Yes.
As close as we can get, okay. Yes, ma'am. You bet. 65.15 is where we are now, but what we were looking at last year was the current rate was 60.30. Voter approved was 69.41. No new revenue was 62.78. We landed on 65.15. So this is between 65.15 and I'm going to guess it might be close to 70, but we really don't know.
Don't know.
So I probably shouldn't even have said that.
Mayor, if I could clarify with Mr. Locke, the
Yes,
no new
please.
revenue rate, though, would likely be below 6515
Yes.
for the
Oh,
most
yeah.
part.
It will.
Okay.
Yes.
Increasing the deficit that we're already facing.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Are you,
I think she may still be thinking now that she's got her numbers.
No, I
Are
was
you ready?
just- No, I'm not. I'm still thinking.
Okay, all right.
Yes to the first one. I had some questions on some previous slides, and I do apologize for getting them on the message board later than I anticipated. So sorry to bring us back, but can we go to slide 44? Okay. Maybe I have it wrong on mine. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's.
There's 4 more slides here than,
It's the one that gets into the service program level impacts from, and then it includes the city manager's office.
Okay.
So it's 44 on mine, but it might be
Oh, there
right
it
there,
is.
49. Okay. So this first bullet, am I misremembering? Last budget cycle, we had allocated a certain amount of money that I don't remember off the top of my head for this new office. Was that money not accounting for a position that was needed? What was the money expended on?
Mr. Meagle, if you want to answer that, we did repurpose, we had a grant specialist position that was open. And so what we did was we were going to reclassify that for a second position for this office. However, we have not hired it because of seeing what has happened with the budget and that we didn't get the tax rate where it was and all that. So that's been as part of the managed hiring freeze. So that's where it is. But there was some operations money that you put towards that Mr. Meagle can speak to in terms of that.
That's correct. Hayden Meagle, Director of Administrative Services. City Manager Reyes is correct. We actually, the funding that council allocated with the FY26 budget reclassified 2 separate positions. They were positions that were already in our budget. One of them was the position filled by Ms. Grisel Perez-Carey, and the other one was a grant specialist position that was vacant. So we reclassified that one to become a specialist position that would report to her. In addition to those 2 reclassifications, we also did have approximately, I want to say it was about $20,000 to $30,000, because whenever we established the office, we wanted some resources for Ms. Perez-Carey to also have in order to either promote the programs or just to be able to perform the duties and enhance some of the services that were provided.
So the dollar amount that I'm thinking of was the 20 to 30,000 that we're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's still there. We're only talking about the position itself, the reclassified, the second position, the grant specialist position.
Okay. And then for the finance and library section, how long have these issues been present? Like, how many years have we deferred addressing them?
I can speak to finance. For finance, the 2 positions were vacant as of November, so it's been from November to current, so a few months.
Very recently?
Yes,
And then
yes,
the
ma'am.
library?
Hi, Natalie McAdams, Director of the San Marcos Public Library. When it comes to the staffing and the security issues with our children's area, it's been since about 2020, 2021, when the new building was built. While the building doubled in size, our staff did not. And so we do not have camera coverage in that area, nor do we have enough staff in that area to make sure that we have a presence in there all the time.
And we're talking about not just that room that sits in the corner, we're talking about the entire children's area?
Yes, the entirety of the children's area. There are not enough staff for us to be able to have someone that's stationed in that room all
And
the
you said
time.
that's 2020, 2021?
This has been happening since 2020, 2021.
When the building was built, yes,
Oh, we're
in its
just-
current form, yes.
And we're just finding out now why.
I don't know if it was previously considered with library staff, but it is a concern that I have for the safety of the children who attend our library programs.
Interesting.
I wonder why we didn't at least get the cameras when we were
Yeah.
expanding and refurbing that building.
That wasn't something that was cited as a need. Prior, what the prior library director had asked for was another librarian because the footprint had expanded.
Sure.
And that was a safety reason. And so we did add another position to do that. at the time, I want to say it was 1 or 2 budget cycles ago that we did that. And
Yeah.
so that's what was asked, and that's what was requested, and that's what was provided.
Yeah, I asked the question, Mayor, because I understand, not being able to fill personnel, but this might be funny coming from me or ironic, but the camera situation feels like a liability. And so, I understand maybe not state-of-the-art system, but I would expect us to be a little bit or have some ingenuity on meeting that need. And so I'm very interested in us continuing this conversation right here as we move forward through the budget process on how we plan to address that. And then Public Works.
Oh, but can we,
Yes,
hold on
ma'am.
1 second?
Mhm.
But even if we have the cameras, you still got to have somebody monitoring the cameras, correct?
Correct, and at this time, we don't have someone whose job it is to full-time watch those cameras. I will tell you that
Good note.
IT has been very proactive, working with me to get quotes. So there is a one-time cost for the camera installation. Obviously, in a couple of years, we would want to upgrade so that we can maintain the integrity of the cameras in the system. And then there is a monthly cost for service for about 36 months that we have quoted out as well.
Okay, and remind me, the Friends of the Library agreement, I think we just saw that recently. What does that all entail as far as like what that money's, like an allowable use on monies raised from that partnership?
So I don't believe in the MOU that there was an allowable use that was designated, other than the fact that it was for the library. Typically, those funds are utilized for library programming, so all of our children's programming, adult programming, summer reading, that's all paid for by the Friends of the Library.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then clarification on Public Works. So the two reductions that we're talking about. I guess let me ask, what is the cause for the reduction of efforts? Are we talking about a reduction in personnel that's leading to these? Or is it reduction in fiscal support that makes these things happen?
Sabas Avila, Director of Public Works. Correct. It's a result of a reduction in force. So with the managed hiring program, we currently have 6 vacancies in the street division of Public Works. The street division oversees our street maintenance as well as our sidewalk maintenance programs. And for that reason, we're not able to meet our productivity goals and schedules that we previously have declared.
And Mr. Avila, how long have the vacancies been a thing, those 6?
Some of those have been open since, I believe, April of last year.
Okay, thank you. That was it for that slide. When I asked sort of like length of time on the vacancies, I would really appreciate some sort of graphic that kind of details how long these asks have been, requested as like more of a supplemental, and how long have they been unaddressed as the years go forward.
And when did managed hiring start?
24? No?
It's been 2 fiscal years at least that we've been doing it, maybe 3.
Yeah, it began in fiscal year '24 when our sales tax started to decrease. Our financial policy has certain things that built in that the city needs to do to respond to a reduction in sales tax, and one of those is a managed hiring program. And when that started, we've kept with that because of the fiscal constraints since it started.
And it's one of those things that, we can give you information about positions and all that kind of stuff, but as long as we don't have budget capacity, that's why we're not able to hire, that's why we're not able to do this. In fact, we've had some very difficult conversations as a team because, we've had to do this retirement incentive, and I know that no one out there will tell you that they have sufficient staff now. But we've had to do this because when you have a budget that it was $100 million, and 85 million of that is personnel, and 15 is what we have to run the city on. You're not gonna get it without looking at your personnel. And so that's why we've had to go to this step to do this, and it has been successful at being able to get some savings. But you're gonna continue to see more of this, not less of this, if we continue to keep the budget capacity where it is. So that's the part of it. It's different if we were in a place where we had more money and we could, that tell you also that we could prioritize those things. But we tell you these things about this because y'all asked about it during visioning, but also it's important for y'all to understand that there are gonna be service level impacts to some of these decisions, and that is what we just want y'all to be aware of when you get those calls from folks about some of this.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. I think that that's why I ask the questions that I do, because I think, I'm not trying to sound presumptuous, but I would hope that my colleagues can understand how year over year, us refusing to act on this is compounding the already dire needs. And so when we talk about narrative and when we talk about being able to go back and explain decisions that we make as it relates to the budget, without that full narrative and showing those needs year over year, you know, it's harder for me to explain a vote. I saw Mr. Gonzalez has a hand. I don't know if it's on this slide, but I have questions on another slide, so I'll wait if it is on this slide.
Well, and Mr. Scott has something he wanted to say, but what I was looking for there is, I didn't know how much of it was related to lack of people and how much of it was lack of purchasing ability to purchase the stuff that you need to do those things. So I think it's mostly personnel. Would that be correct, Ms. Reyes? Okay, Mr. Scott, then Mr. Gonzalez, then we'll circle
Yeah, I
back.
heard Ms. Reyes say it, my question.
Oh, you're good? Okay. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, so I just wanted clarification on the library issue. Because right now it seems like the narrative is that we expanded the footprint of the library but never staffed it. But if I'm understanding the city manager correctly, a couple of budget cycles ago, there was a request for an additional librarian that was actually built. So did that librarian never actually get assigned to that area, or what?
Hi,
What
thank
is
you
it?
so much for the question. Natalie McAdams, Library Director. It's not an issue of that position not being filled. That position was filled, and the library staff are very grateful for it. The issue is more that the size of the building itself doubled, but the staff did not proportionally increase. So one additional staff member for a building that's open 70 hours a week to cover that amount of space was not adequate for the amount of staff that would be needed for doubling the space.
Okay, so it was just enough of a staff expansion wasn't requested. They should have requested more staff at that
Yes,
point.
absolutely.
Okay, I get it now.
Thank you.
Anything else on this slide on these four departments? Ms. Garza? When we're done with this slide, we'll just go to the next one.
I appreciate the explanation on the defer hiring community service specialist, but if y'all could email me like a synopsis of how that all went down, that would be helpful. Yeah, that's something I really want to keep an eye on, just because I have expressed my frustrations in the past with me. My understanding was even with ARPA money, we had put money towards somebody who was going to be doing something like community support specialist work, and then it just ended up being lumped into the diversity, equity staff member. There's like a lot of confusion about that, so I just don't want that to fall through the cracks again.
And that has not, so diversity, equity, and inclusion was funded by ARPA, you'll recall that. And then we asked council several budgets ago to operationalize that and put that in the budget. And so we did. And then, of course, the law changed in terms of being able to have DEI-type positions, and knowing that this mayor and council had really wanted more of that community support role and that kind of resource navigator, we saw that that was really where the position was going as it was. And so we reclassed that position to be that community support and resource navigator last budget cycle. And then what we told y'all when we were setting up the office is that at the time, what we planned was to have a grant specialist that was already approved in the budget, that was a vacant position, to be repurposed. And with the way that the budget has been and not being able to hire and having to go through this managed hiring, I'm just gonna be very frank, that people look at, and my staff looks at, this is the city manager's office. And is the city manager's office feeling the pain that some of them are feeling? And so we really prioritize the positions that we have right now to try to do the jobs that we have, and that was one of the ones that has stayed in a managed hiring process. And what Mr. Meagle and I talked about was getting, you know, an intern or somebody, and to ensure that Ms. Grisel Bettis Carey's office is supported as much as possible to make sure that we're still doing the things that council asked and expected us to do of that position. And so the service levels haven't necessarily been different. It's just she doesn't have a support staff person to help her with that. She's doing all of that stuff herself right now.
Gotcha. My ask was, I appreciate the verbal explanation, but my ask is for it to be emailed, written out.
Would it be correct to assume that most of the things that can't be done at the level that they were before is due to lack of personnel?
Yes, ma'am. Most of what is covered on this is more related to personnel. There were some programs that fire and police shared that are
Right.
being impacted. That's not related to personnel. That's more budget related.
Well, yes, but most of these. Okay, Ms. Reyes, have we looked at the programs where we offer funding, like the BIG, Business Improvement Growth Grant, those kinds of things? Have we looked at those? Because I know some of those were not being fully utilized, and that we didn't have enough applications to even spend all of those dollars for at least a few years. Have we looked at those to see what savings there are there?
I don't know that we have, and we can look at that, but it still doesn't give us the level of funding that we need for some of this, and especially because some of those things are also, it depends on whether it's recurring or it's one time. And so the personnel part of it is the recurring that we have the struggle with. That's why the retirement incentive was something that we looked at,
Yeah.
because it helps to actually reduce FTEs, reduce benefits, and it's been a fully voluntary. So we can definitely look at that, Mayor. I just don't think that we're gonna have the gains that we're looking at when we're having the 4 million. Everything adds up.
No, I get that, but I think there might have been 100,000 one year that wasn't used, and that's maybe close to a person. So my question is, what all have we looked at besides just not letting people fill positions, because that's what managed hiring means? What else have we looked at? I'm sure that staff has looked at many things when they had to collectively come up with the 100,000.
Correct.
But I'm just, have we looked at everything?
Yeah, if we'll go back to that slide that shows what has staff done to reduce the $4 million.
And City Manager, if I could speak to the grant programs, our staff has doubled down on promoting those. Those are very effective for helping our existing local businesses. And as council remembers, we have recategorized our economic development to economic and local business development to emphasize the local business growth. So with that, and with the addition of our business retention and expansion person, we have seen a renewed and great interest in those grant programs, such that the funding probably would not fully fund all the applications that we have.
Okay.
And so we have had great success with that recently through the doubling down of
That's
promotion.
good to know, but I don't know that we've been informed of that. And I know for a couple of years, there was money left
Yes.
that was unspent. And so that's where I'm looking for straws.
Yes, those applications are being reviewed. We anticipate that, that they will make it to council for approval or with approval, but they will be utilized fully.
Yeah, I don't think that we have approved them in the
I don't think
past.
the
You know,
Okay.
that was a
I don't
staff
think the
thing.
grant
But
requires
just
approval.
reporting to us and letting us know, hey,
We-
who got them, what are the addresses, and,
We'd be glad to provide you the activity that we have.
okay. Well, I guess it's good to know that the promotion is there, but I was looking for funds that had previously gone unspent, trying to piece some pennies together.
So this
Okay.
right here, Mayor, will show you a lot of the things that we've done, because again, we're trying to get as much and maximize, what we can. And so the managed hiring is just one prong and one lever that we've pulled. The retirement incentive is another one, and we'll be happy to provide that, but it's a good amount, and it is effective for what we intended it to do. Also, we're looking at our fleet to make sure that we're
Yep.
understanding, with interest rates where they are, does it make sense for us still to lease purchase, or should we just purchase? Also looking
I've
to
been
make.
saying that for 10 years.
Well, it was effective at the time when you were talking about it and we did analysis, but now that we've done, because even Mr. Scott, who was very skeptical, looked at it, and we had an outside person look at it, but since then, Mayor, since the economy's changed and interest rates have changed, we just want to make sure that's still the case. And so that's what we've been doing to try to analyze that, but also to look at how many miles, and do we need all of the fleet that we currently have? And so that's another touch point that we're looking at. And then we're also looking at temporary employees. Right now, we have staffing agencies that we have temporary employees go to and in order to come and work
Yeah,
for the city.
I saw this.
So all of this, just to make sure, because I know we didn't really spend a lot of time on it, we went through it pretty quickly, but there are many levers that we've been looking at, not just looking at only managed hiring. We have looked at other things, to answer your question. And then the other thing is that we haven't touched right now is professional development, but that's something else that I have talked to Mr. Locke about, is to see if that's something for next fiscal year. That's always one of the things that when you have a lot of pain and change for an organization, that's always the first thing that people look at. But it's also a painful thing to look at for people. And so that's why we really haven't. We've tried to see how we can reduce some of the meaningful costs and go from there. But if there's a year or two that we have to go without certain things besides licenses and certifications, then that may be another lever that we're looking at. So we're definitely looking very diligently at all of the things we possibly can among our operations to see what we can get savings.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, a question real quick. On that, when we hire somebody, or we have, minus the police and fire, our group of employees, when you talk about remanaging them or finding needing what's good, what they need still and what we don't need, they don't really get fired or disappear. They just kind of assimilate, don't they, into the
Reassign?
reassign?
They can, but like with what we're doing right now, when it comes to the retirement incentive, the way that the retirement incentive has worked is it was for all employees who are currently eligible, and they received an invitation to get more information about that and be looked at if they had an interest in it. The department directors then got the list with the HR department and went through each particular, request where there was interest to see, would the position be eliminated? Could it be eliminated? Could there be reassignment of some of the job responsibilities of the particular individual to where maybe there's some growth opportunities for some of our existing staff, to get additional responsibilities, additional compensation, but you're still saving on benefits of another FTE. And so those had to be the prongs that had to be checked in order for them to qualify, if you will, to be able to be eligible for the retirement incentive. And so then that discussion was had with each individual who had expressed interest, and then they had to sign a letter to say that they were wanting to do that, and then they will retire on or before the end of the fiscal year so that we can use savings in order to pay for those one-time things. But it is going to achieve recurring, ongoing expenses. And so that's the way in which this was laid out, and it has been effective. But there will be service level impacts potentially on some of these, but we're trying really hard to make sure that people are able to get some of those duties to minimize those as much as possible.
Okay. Mr. Pasilk?
$4 million in a year, you're trying to do everything that you possibly can to get there. How are we feeling about these measures? How confident are we? Are we going to get 50% of this done? Are we going to get 25%
We're going to get to the
done?
$4 million because we have to.
Right.
And so we will, and, I haven't really talked with the directors, so they're gonna hear this for the first time, but, with what we've been able to achieve on the letters that have been signed so far, we're about $2 million. And they're gonna probably freak out, because some of them didn't really think that, do we really need to do this? Do we really need to do this? Is it gonna be effective? Well, we didn't know if it was gonna be effective but we were gonna try it, and if we failed, we failed, but it's a pretty significant,
But we're seeing that effective October 1.
yes, because this is for the fiscal year 27 budget. And so that's when we would be realizing those savings. And so, so it's going to be pretty significant. And then in addition to these other things, and then you still don't know what we're going to do on the HFCs, PFCs, you know, with that lawsuit. That's $700,000 in recurring money that we don't know what's going to happen with. So that's in a suspense account until we know. And then sales tax, I hate to, but I'm going to put it out in the universe in a positive way so that hopefully it does it. Sales tax has been holding strong, and so hopefully that will continue. And so then we'll be able to hopefully get there, also continuing some sort of managed hiring program. We also have, you know, there's directors who know and are really trying to rework even their crew situations to see, okay, how can we get out of a managed hiring for some of their positions so that anything that comes up vacant, we're able to hire? Because the only way you get out of a managed hiring is being able to reduce the positions so that then whenever vacant positions do come up, then you know that those are positions you need, and then you're able to hire those. And so we have had directors who have come up with even that to say, hey, where can I reduce and recalibrate my crews to still get the things that we need to get done, but reduce ongoing and recurring expenses. So I want to commend the directors because that has been, we've had a lot of very painful and tough conversations. That has been something that, you know, directors' meetings have not always been the funnest over the last several months. They've been very difficult and tough for us to do, but it's our responsibility to try to do the best that we can to run the most effective and efficient organization, keeping up with the core values that you have said are important to you and that the community feels are important to them. But it's not an easy task. And there's a lot of things that mayor and council don't really know because we feel like it's our job to do those things, and we try to tell you the things that are important for y'all to help us do those things and policy-wise that we need. And so I do want to give my director's team a big kudos because it has not been easy, but we have been working on it very diligently.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I do have one more comment, Mayor, if I'm,
Go ahead.
you may. This is, it's about as bad as it gets, and it's one of the hardest things I've done it, seen it in business, is the human aspect of turning departments. And you've got, you know, $85 million, $100,000 a pop, that's 40 people to cover for me, I've never said, or 20, or whatever mechanisms you use to get there, but those are really tough conversations. So I do believe that a portion of this is obviously market-driven, right? And just, it's an opportunity for us to reiterate that revenue is the best way to ride all these ships. We've got to get some form of revenue in here, and we've got to focus on the front end. Otherwise, it's going or back to people on property taxes. And so, you know, our economic situation's got to be better than it is now.
And and I couldn't agree with you more, Ms. Ramirez has been working very much since she started now 2 weeks ago to look at that revenue side. And so we're going to be working very carefully with our small businesses to understand where their pain points are, those kinds of things, but also to work with y'all very, very diligently on your economic development incentive policy, making sure your policy reflects what types of businesses we really want to attract so that we don't waste people's time and we don't waste anybody's time in terms of making sure we're getting the right kinds of things that are the right fit. Really understanding your target industries that you want us to go after and look at things. But just in the short time that she's been here, she's talked to some people that want to do some things downtown. She's been talking with folks who want to do things with the airport. And so, yeah, again, those are going to be really, really important conversations that we have to look at what are our assets and how do we make the best of our assets to really ensure that we can help it bring in money for us, you know, as a community, because we don't like being in this situation anymore that y'all like having to make decisions feeling like this. And so we're trying to pull every lever that we possibly can that still allows us to have service delivery, still allows us to keep good quality staff, because I don't want people to leave. You know, the team knows when they ask me, hey, what's your vision? It's that the people that we have, that we right-size our staff, and then the people that we have left are the people that we're gonna pay very, competitively and fairly. We're gonna train them, they're gonna have the tools that they need to do their jobs, and that they're gonna deliver stellar service to our community members. That's like where we want to be. And so the only way to do that is to go through some of the stuff that we're going through right now to try to get the pain out there, and knowing that we're gonna have to constrain some of our costs in order to do that, and then look at the revenue side of things. And that's what you're gonna hear from us a lot when we do bring you revenue opportunities. And no one wants to charge more for things, but sometimes if we're having to pay more, there's going to have to be some of those conversations.
It's economics, yes, but it's also, I would argue it's more than just like, it's a regressive tax system that we live under, forcing cities to do more with less. Let's just be frank. Like, yes, you have market conditions, but in many ways, we have been forced to find ways to be creative because of such a regressive tax system. I guess when I hear like the cuts, we had this conversation last year, and sort of, I think one of the things was the $100,000 that was collectively cut from departments. One thing I didn't ask though at that time was, were the cuts that the departments made proportionate? Like, was proportionality accounted for in those cuts?
Yes, ma'am. The way that we came up with to allocate that 100,000 across all of the departments, we looked at a 3-year average of the remaining, or I should say, the remaining budget or the available budget at the end of the fiscal year for a 3 fiscal year span. And whatever that was, each department just was allocated the percent of the total remaining budget. So we try to look at it from a perspective, if a department wasn't spending all of their money, then they would get a higher percent of the cut than somebody who maybe was spending all of their money. So that's the way it was allocated across the departments.
So not necessarily though, like, am I understanding correctly to assume that doesn't, I guess when I look at the pie chart of which departments take up how much of our general fund, so we'll just give an example, 24% is the police department. Were the cuts that they made proportionate to the amount that they take in the budget? Because I hear you on the spent versus unspent.
Yeah.
But that aside, did we account for that? And I guess when I bring up that pie chart, one of the smaller departments on here was like neighborhood enhancement. This is my question. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, I understand. Because the way that it was allocated was not based on the total budget that a department received. It was based on the amount of remaining budget that the department had on average over the past 3 years.
So one could say that some departments bared more of a brunt in terms of cuts because it wasn't necessarily proportionate to the amount their department makes up.
Compared to that, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess that's where my concern was, is how, and it's sort of been the same conversation every time we have our budget, is are departments bearing the responsibility based off proportionality? And so, okay.
But I will say, every single department participated. And there were significant, using the example of the police department cut pretty significantly, as well as the fire department. And I believe more so than some of the other departments did when I'm thinking of dollar amount. But for it to match exactly the amount of allocation that each of them have, no. But like I said, everybody participated, and there were significant cuts in the fire and police department
Which I was
specifically.
aware of, but my question was more so around like the equity of it all.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't necessarily have a question for the department. It was just trying to understand the equity of it all. And so I don't know if it's possible, and I mean, granted the personnel, I'm not trying to give staff more work, but I would really like to see like a graph identifying like, that the cuts in proportion to the amount of the budget each department makes up. And I can clarify the question in an email if that, I'm just thinking about it right now.
If I could I speak for just a second for a level of specificity? So Mr. Locke explained that the departments were required to cut $100,000 for this current fiscal environment. The police department cut 102,000. So he communicated all across departments, cut 100. Our portion of that, plus we had to offset all increased costs associated with software and licensing fees. So we actually cut 102,000 just in the police department. So I don't know that equity will be seen if you just look at the $100,000 breakdown, because you also, and this chief could also speak to this, you also have to contemplate all increased costs associated with all of those normal maintenance fees we had to absorb, which ultimately reduced our spending capital. So my department alone, your police department alone, was 102,000.
I appreciate the additional information, and I'm not trying to sound argumentative, but when
Yes,
I
ma'am.
bring up the word equity, given the 24% and the fact that in the next fiscal year, we are going to have, somehow as a city, because we're obligated per meet and confer, to come up with $1.5 million for the fire department and the police department combined, that's where the equity concerns come from. We don't have that discussion for other departments around this city who have identified needs year over year over year over year. And it's very much a team effort. And so I'm trying to see how that team effort really looks on paper. So I hear you, but that's that was sort of the purpose of the question I asked earlier when I used the word equity.
And what I do know with some departments, and it always is gonna depend on the size of the department, but some have more to give than others have to give, and so I understand where that's coming from. So we have tried to be very diligent and fair in terms of the way that we've looked at it, to be sure that there's not the service level cuts to where the community sees those things as much. And so that's been another part of this equation. It's not easy work, to have to go through and try to make those decisions, but we try to do the best that we can.
And I appreciate all the efforts because I think council also has a responsibility to respond. I very much feel that way. But it's also subjective because when we talk about even the sidewalks, the reason I asked the question is because we all know that one of the reoccurring asks is sidewalks. And so
As
when we
much
talk
as we
about.
do, there's more,
Yes.
so
And
much
so when
more
we
to be
talk
done.
about community priorities and what the community is asking for, very rarely do I hear asks for the departments that typically we focus on as a city. And that's why I bring up those things, is our community, I'm just trying to relay what the community is consistently asking for. So.
And I think part of the difficulty for us is going to be, is that it's difficult because everybody wants certain things, but somebody's got to pay for it, and how do we figure that part of it out? I mean, we would all be in probably very different jobs if we could figure that, that $1 million question out, but that is the difficulty, is everybody has different ideas of what priorities are. Everybody has different ideas of what revenues and who should bear those fees and costs and everything. And so it's just trying to balance as much as we possibly can. But I think for purposes of tonight, what we really just need to understand is, are y'all wanting to keep the tax rate similar, or you're wanting to consider any increase? Are you wanting to consider a decrease? That would freak us all out, I will tell you that right now, because when we're trying to cut this and y'all are still saying, can we have this and can we have that? I don't see how we do that. But if y'all are gonna go that direction, we need to know that as soon as possible so that we can know what budget direction to give to the departments as they go and formulate their budgets for the upcoming year.
And so if we can go back to the decision point slide, which I guess is, I think, 57 on your count. We're still on the first one, and I've got 3 pages here, 2.5. And so, one more, there it is. So we're still on, keep the tax rate between the current rate and voter approval rate, which basically says, are you looking to drop the current rate? And that would be something different. So, Ms. Rodriguez, I have you as a yes, and I have Mr. Gonzalez as, he prefers the no net new revenue rate. And so I need to hear from the rest of you. I can call on you, or you can tell me what you think. Mr. Mendoza?
I'm a yes to
what you
keep
got?
the rate between the
Okay.
current rate and the voter approved rate.
Okay. Mr. Scott, what you think?
The current rate being 65.15 and
Yes,
the,
ma'am.
and the voter approval being 69.41?
You don't have to choose one or the other. It's basically, are you willing to stay where we are, maybe go a little higher? That's what the real question is, isn't it, Mr. Locke?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, and unless, like Ms. Reyes said, that council wanted to decrease it, then it would go lower.
In
But-
which case, they need to know now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stay-
Where are you?
Stay flat,
What,
Whatever
well,
our
what does
current-
stay flat mean?
whatever our current rate is.
That's not flat, but fluffy. Are you okay with item one?
Yes.
All right.
Wait,
So,
stay flat is not the same thing of us keep the tax rate between current rate and voter approval rate. You want it to stay near 65.15 is what we
So any
have.
more taxes being added to the community.
Yes, CC.
so you're
So it's
really
a
more
no.
of a net new revenue rate then, probably. Okay, I'll put you down for that. Net new revenue,
So that would be 65.15-ish.
The no new revenue rate would be lower than 6515.
Correct.
be lower.
6515 is the current rate.
Yes.
yes.
And that would mean that if property values increase, you would still have a little bit of an increase in taxes. A no new revenue rate is you only want to bring in the same amount of money that you have this year. And so that could mean a lower tax rate.
Which means so all those positions remain unfilled,
Correct.
correct, et cetera.
And
And the $4 million is higher.
the $4 million gap
Right.
grows higher.
Yeah.
And even, I know we're focused on the $4 million, but we've got to look at the multi-year. And of course, with it going to 10, 13, 15, it's just going to get more and more. So that's the difficulty when you start talking about cutting the tax rate without bringing on marked new
And-
revenue.
And I've asked this before, and I didn't see it up here. Maybe I did when I left the room to get my pillow and my blanket. And that is, we know, you've heard me ask this before, we know there's a lot of stuff on the ground. And it will be assessed January 1. And we won't see that money till the following January. But is there anything that's going to be assessed this January 1st? Because we know what's out there. We know what's finished because we do certificates of obligation, certificates of occupation? C of O? Yes, occupancy. Do we have a handle on what that is for the ones that'll be assessed, that were assessed a couple of months ago? That will get that tax money this upcoming fiscal year?
We do not, Mayor. That is, and by April 30th, when we receive the preliminary roll, that will have all of the new value assessed, by the
So
appraisal
we're
district.
just gonna wait and see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, we'll find out
Okay.
soon enough.
So I'm still looking for clarity on what Councilman Scott wanted. I just want to make sure that our current is 65.15. But you were going to put him as no new revenue.
I just didn't want to make any new increases.
You don't want people's tax bill to go up.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were good with 6515, but not any higher.
Right.
Yes, okay, I just wanted to make sure,
Well,
because that's a little bit different than no.
When he says he doesn't want somebody's bill to go up, since we don't know which way appraisals are going,
This is like the way that the question is worded
Yeah.
is like kind of like,
the no new revenue rate is what Mr. Scott's talking about, I think. Yes, no?
like
It-
a
the-
future no new revenue rate or the one right now?
Which we don't know what it is yet, but whatever
We
it
don't know what it
is.
is yet. And that was something that Mr. Miegel was bringing up. It is possible if values go down enough that the no new revenue rate is above our
Go up.
current rate.
Right, but the point is, the taxpayer is likely, and this isn't assigned individually, but the taxpayer is likely to not pay more. That's what the new revenue.
With the no
rate
new
means.
revenue rate, That's the reason for the no new revenue
And
rate.
I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that's what he's saying.
Yes.
Okay. Over here.
Yeah, just because there's like so many unknowns, like I'm really not able to answer the question the way that it's worded, but similar to my colleague, Mr. Scott, I think raising taxes on our neighbors is like the last approach I want to take. I really do appreciate y'all sharing all the struggles and the strides that the city staff has been experiencing and like working towards trying to weigh budget cuts and other constraints. But I think it's really important for me to name that what I hear every day is just how much our community is struggling. And, you know, I think everybody like across the nation is, in whatever industry you're in, they're going through this. Yeah, and that's kind of like what I carry, and I just don't have enough information right now to, yeah. I can't answer this question the way that it's worded, but raising the tax rate would be like the absolutely last move that I would support.
So you're looking for taxpayers to not have a higher bill?
Yes,
Okay.
right now.
Okay. Mr. Pacelk?
Yeah, I agree with her sentiment. And I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. We'll have to see how it shakes out, but yeah.
I think the difficulty with it is with being, like, I understand y'all feel tentative about it, but I need clear direction to know what to go back to my departments and give direction. And being able to say, well, I don't really know if I want to raise taxes, well, that may mean that I'm having to look at, if y'all want to do a reduction, I'm having to do that, and that $4 million is going to go up. So I have a much different conversation with directors and even with y'all if you're telling me that at this juncture, because I have no direction to go back and tell the departments to know what to put together for a budget. So I get it's hard, and I get we don't have all the information right now, and it is a forecast, but I need clear direction at some point to be able to know what to give directors
Right.
direction.
I'm still unclear as to how you expect us to answer that when I don't even think we're on the same page about, like, I mean, what could y'all add to the slide, current rate, voter approval rate, and like, does that make sense? Like, I'm still really confused, and then we say, these were last year's numbers, but like, it might kind of change, like, what?
I think where we are, I'm going to tell you where I am, is I would like for our taxpayers to not see an increase. But until I see what April is, I know that the city needs money to operate. So I'm hoping that there's going to be enough new stuff on the ground to help cover the gap that you're looking at. But as we say, we don't want the taxpayer to see a higher rate.
But when you say that, that's where I'm getting confused, because do you not want to see a higher tax rate of 6515? Or do you not want them to see a higher bill, which obviously that's going to be variable based on appraisals?
Sure.
But that's my struggle, is because I'm not getting clear direction on if it's stay with the current tax rate or possibly go to a lower tax rate, because those are two different paths that we take as a staff. Otherwise, I don't know how we build any budgets, period.
I've got 4 people that have said no new, whatever it is, no new.
No new revenue.
No new revenue. I've got 4 people, and you're about to have a 5th.
So then you want us to decrease the tax rate? And the other
I
thing,
don't know that that's what we're going to have to do until we see numbers in April.
I need to get budgets built before April. And so that's the difficulty. Yes, things can be cut, but the number that we're talking about doesn't even include EMS. It only includes EMS for the 4.5 million that is there. If you cut the tax rate, you're going backwards. You just increased the tax rate to give me 2 million to do EMS, And if we go backwards, then we're not even getting that amount. And so how can we take on EMS?
Thanks for clarifying that. I didn't think I really understood.
Yeah, because the question
If we
is
voted on a
worded.
65.15% tax rate, the public, that's their expectation, that's what they're paying. There's different outcomes based on what happens, but I don't want to regress either and put us in a bad financial situation.
That's what will happen, and the question's worded exactly as it's been worded every year. I don't think we've ever changed the thing. And at this time, we always ask y'all the same question of, because we know from y'all, hey, do we, absolutely not, we won't consider a tax rate increase. Or yes, we're willing to do an increase. And so we've gotten at least that clarified direction. And then when we get into the June, July, and August timeframe, that's where we have clearer numbers and we see what's actually there. And then that's when y'all been able to finalize the tax rate based on that. But if we don't even get a good idea of what y'all are willing to do now, that's where it's hard to know how we're supposed to do this and incorporate EMS and other things that y'all have told us that you want us to do.
Well, I think there's a minimum baseline of 65.15 cents because that's what the public is aware of, no matter what. And I think that's fair, just to start some conversation on that. I personally did not understand the implication that we might be putting ourselves in a deficit, and I wouldn't want to do that.
You're a yes to this, but you want it to be closer to the current rate than
Yeah,
the
look,
other?
I think all of us are saying we just don't want to put any additional burden on the taxpayer, and I get the differences between percentages and dollars is what we're talking about here.
I'm just hoping
yeah.
our increases, stuff on the ground outweigh the,
That's what I'm hoping
because we
too.
got CarMax coming on, we got Buc-ee's coming on, we got a lot of
H-E-B.
big stuff coming on that does add a lot to our tax base.
We have a lot of stuff coming on, but I also just want to name that some of the industries that bring in a lot of our money are industries that we're seeing across the nation negatively impacted due to the Trump administration's racist and anti-immigration policies. So like Lowe's, lumber stuff, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
And I did just want to put out, some of that development, like Buc-ee's and probably CarMax, we won't see until fiscal year '28, because that development wasn't in place as of January 1 of this year, and that's the value that we'll be able to use to operate on during fiscal year '27.
Yeah, for the Buc-ee's, I was thinking sales tax from when they open, but that won't be much within,
That year.
well, they'll be started FY '27, if they open
Yeah,
before
so, yeah,
October.
from,
And same thing with H-E-B, they're gonna
yes,
open
from
sometime in the
sales
fall.
tax, yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we'll get the sales tax, just not the property tax.
Okay,
Well-
I'm gonna go around again and ask the question again, but if you would like to answer it with the way I'm going to answer it, which is, I'm gonna say yes, but I'd like to see it closer to the current rate, with a very small increase if there's an increase needed. So
it's gonna
that's
come
where
back
I
to
am,
us.
and I'm not sure what, I'm just gonna put a little less than here.
And-
Yes,
and-
less
and
than.
if it's easier, if council wanted to just say, stay at 6515, it doesn't
Exactly.
have to be a spread.
Exactly.
If council just wants to stay,
You
that's,
can give me 6515 as your answer if that's what you want.
So I'll go with,
So-
yeah.
Is that where you are, Mr. Purcell?
That's where
Yes.
I will go, Mayor, but it's important for me to name that is with me assuming that council priorities will stop being kind of put in as like a second tier. So I feel like we don't ask for a whole lot of additions to things. I feel like we usually just contemplate what's put in front of us. But for example, the Office of, what are we calling it?
Community support and resource navigation?
Right. And then also some of the items that we're going to discuss in the, I think in the next coming slides. Those, I feel like, are some of the items that we as a council felt very passionate about because they meet a lot of the needs that our constituents tell us very regularly, right? And so that's my answer is 65.15?
Yeah.
With the assumption that the priorities that council has put forth, such as eviction prevention services, the mental health clinician, and so on and so forth, remain a priority. Does that make sense? Like,
And I'll be asking about that in the next,
right.
Yes,
shortly.
and I will
But we're going to
clarify.
take a break before that.
Thank you.
And I will clarify that the $4 million gap does include everything on that slide.
I'm sorry, the what?
The $4 million gap does include continuing everything on that slide. But we want to ask mayor and council to make sure that that's really what y'all, like, every single thing that's on
why-
there.
That's why it's on my little
So-
grid.
yeah, so-
Every last line.
So it'll be there, but I just wanted to clarify with what what Councilmember Gadisa just said, is that right now, those are included in the $4 million gap, because those are things that y'all said that you want,
So by
but we just
saying in
want
the
to clarify.
gap, you mean not funded?
No, they're,
All right, with-
we're trying to get those funded to close that $4 million gap, and that's included. Once we close that gap, those will all be included.
Right, and
Okay.
yes, and I just mean
Thank
like
you.
generally, like with the explanation of, we decided to put this, you know, in the parking lot because of, you know, we're broke right now, or the Office of Community, whatever, like that feels, it doesn't sit right with me, because like we have, I think it's been like at least 6 years in the making that we've been asking for that. And it really just feels like a slap in the face to say, yeah, we're gonna put that in the corner for now. And so when I talk about supporting this tax rate, it's with the assumption that at the rare occasion that council brings forward something that is like new, that it is weighed with the same priority as the items that you all bring to us.
And Councilmember, I appreciate that, and I hear you. Number one, it's there because, and I know that you were very supportive last year when we had the tax rate where it was gonna all be included with those things. When the tax rate got, at the last minute, changed to a lower amount, all of those things made us have to make some decisions. And so I want to name that. That's not just staff, that's not on just staff. Staff has to make decisions and respond to where council sets the tax rate that then allow us capacity to do those things. Now, y'all as council have the ability, if that's something that doesn't sit well with y'all as a body and y'all want to do something else, y'all can tell me that you want me to add that position back in. And my directors are hearing that that is what y'all want us to do. And y'all have the prerogative to do that. So we can always add that position back in if that's something that y'all as a body want us to do. So I just want to make sure
But
that's clear.
By position, you're not talking about the manager, you're talking about the secondary position
Correct.
that's unfilled now.
Correct.
The manager remains, some operating budget remains, and that is not in question, correct? Okay.
Correct. This is the
Just
support
want to make
position.
sure I need to
Correct.
understand. Okay.
Yes.
But I'll agree with her, it's a position that, I can say I've wanted for 20 years, so there we go. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Mr. Scott and Mr. Mendoza for an answer. You're 65, and Mr. Mendoza, you had given us a yes before?
Yes, ma'am, I'm gonna stay with that, yes.
You're still with a yes, okay. Mine was a yes, hoping we stay at the, close to the 65, if not 65. Ms. Rodriguez, and then I'll need to go to Mr. Gonzalez.
I'm a yes, as I was before. I do appreciate last budget cycle when y'all sort of gave the varying scenarios and calculated the forecasted deficit. I imagine we're gonna do that again.
Yes, ma'am, we will.
I will be the first to say I definitely hear and talk with people all throughout the community who are really struggling financially, myself included. And I understand that to raise taxes is not sexy, it's not easy, and it sucks being newer on the council, inheriting where we are, and being expected to respond. But hard decisions have to be made, and I meant it when I said I do appreciate the sacrifice. While I would still argue on equity, I do appreciate the sacrifice of staff so far. And so I'm a yes for now on number one, and look forward to seeing what that looks like later down the line.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, you had said once before you wanted to stay closer to the no new revenue rate. Are you still there, or are you perhaps amenable to the 65, maybe a hair more?
Yeah, I think I'm with, I guess some of my colleagues at the 6515. So I
All
guess
right.
that makes four of us at that, but, yeah.
Okay, so we have answered the first one. We have been here 2 hours and 9 minutes, and we're going to take a break at 7:39. Council members, if you could be back in your seats, ready to roll at 7:40. Staff, if you could help us. I'm sorry, 7:45. Staff, if you could help us in telling council members, great conversation, but I know you need to go back and be in your place, would be helpful. We have come back from our break at 7:46, and we are on item 2, question for the general fund, and that is keep the debt component of the tax rate less than or equal to 30%. And I think we're at that now. I know at one time our debt rate was really high, and it took several years to fix that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I will go around the table and ask y'all about the debt component of the tax rate, keeping it to less than or equal to 30%. Anybody want, Ms. Rodriguez is yes.
Yes.
Mr. Paselk is a yes. Ms. Garza is a yes. I'm a yes.
Absolutely, yes.
You're a yes. Mr. Gonzalez? I see him shaking his head yes. All right. Item 3, include cost of living adjustment for the non-civil service of 3%, which will come to a total of about $1.3 million.
Staff, question for you. So this is just for us to get it to the next level, saying that we would just want to include it into this budget. We're not saying that's what it's going to be at the end result. Y'all can still negotiate lower than that, right? I mean, there's still,
It's not negotiated.
well, I
Not-
thought they said they talk about.
This
The
is
3%?
non-civil service.
This is the non-civil service, so
So
this,
then what we're saying here is that's what we're going to, it's going to be at that. at
that,
the
that's
very
how much
least.
we have to work with,
Okay.
to look with that. And, Ms. Cox, I know that at the visioning, workshop, y'all asked some questions about exit, interviews and trying to understand compensation. She's done some analysis, and she can kind of give you some data on that to answer y'all's questions in regard to what we're seeing on, why people are leaving us, the people who are leaving us. And, so, Ms. Cox, you want to share that?
That we can certainly get to you guys that really depicts over the last 4 fiscal years our reasoning for team members separating our organization. The highest would be growth opportunities, and then next is compensation. The third reason is retirement. So we can certainly get those to you guys so that you can see the results from our team members as they exit our organization.
And you said over the last 4 years.
Correct.
Ms. Reyes, remind me when we went through and adjusted salaries? It was 3 years ago, so maybe we want the numbers since then, or at least tell us what year. Because I think some of the things that we did fix I'm leaving here for more money.
Yeah, absolutely. I've started with fiscal year 23 through fiscal year 26 current.
I think 23 goes too far back.
Okay. We can remove that, and I can provide that chart to you.
Or just let's have the information by year and remind us when that compensation adjustments happened.
Okay, I can provide that.
Yeah, it's when we did the compensation philosophy and all that, when
Yes.
your
The
council
2023.
adopted that.
Yes.
2023.
Okay. So, so you're a yes, thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a yes for this. I just had a question that I put on the message board. So for non-civil service employees, that 3%, how many employees are we talking about?
It's 505,
Okay. And then the meet and confer, how many employees are we talking about?
223.
So 500 and something employees are going to cost us to give a 3%, $1.3 million, and 200 and something are going to cost 1.5?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a yes.
Somehow those numbers don't seem right, but I'm sure they are. Mr. Paselk?
Yes.
Ms. Garza? Yes. I'm a yes. Mr. Scott? We're on 3. Yeah, you missed the one for 2. We're on 3. Okay, he's saying yes, but his microphone is not on. And Mr. Gonzalez, where are you?
Yes.
Okay, on to, we're going to do item 4 in a second. Oh, anything else that we haven't already talked about? Because we talked about a lot already, and that would be for general fund.
Yes, ma'am.
General fund, that's not one of the other slides that's coming up. Okay, then we will go to the next one, if you could, next slide, I guess. These are items that, Ms. Reyes, these were items that were coming out of, I'm just gonna say, other money.
Yes, American Rescue Plan
Mostly
monies.
ARPA, probably.
Yes, ma'am.
And do we want to continue these? And I'm not sure what the difference, I know the orange is ongoing. You've got recommended to continue, but for the gray ones, it says expiring federal funding. What you want to know is, do we want to continue those, correct?
Correct. And as I mentioned before, that is included in that $4 million deficit. So if council were to say you want to include every single thing on this slide,
Yep,
you're not going to go up in
Okay.
your $4 million deficit that we're
Thank you.
trying. That is already included.
This is already covered
Because
and
as Ms. Garza
included.
talked about, that those are things you've said you wanted. We just want to make sure that we double check as
we
a
still want
as a
them.
body that you still want all of these things.
Okay. Council, if you want all of them, you can say all. If you want to address these one by one, that's fine. But I thought earlier, there was a slide that said the mental health clinician was not going to continue.
Yes, that was just the police department wanting to bring the council's attention that if we didn't include it on this slide, that it would go away.
Okay, that's what got me to where thinking this wasn't included and this was gonna add more to the other. Okay, got it now.
Recommending that it continue.
Yes.
And it's funded.
And it would be funded within that
Okay.
$4 million gap. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, for where it stands right now until the next level, I would like to see all these funded.
All of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna put you down as an all. Mr. Lorenzo Gonzalez, what you think?
To make things easier, I'm good with including all of them
Okay.
to forward, but without committing to any.
Yeah,
or
we're
all
gonna
of-
need you closer to your microphone, because we can barely hear you, sir.
I'm sorry. So just to move things forward, I'm good with continuing to consider everything, but
Okay.
with the caveat that I'm not necessarily committing to them by the time we get to the end of this process.
I'm not sure what that meant.
I don't want to spend the next 3 hours debating all these line items just because knowing that we're going to debate them again later. So for now, they can move forward.
Keep them on the list.
The energy to have these
Okay.
arguments.
Mr. Scott? I'm an all. Ms. Garza?
I guess keep them on the list, but as I've expressed in the past, whenever we have these decision points, it's helpful for me to get a sense of the efficacy of the program, the grows and the glows. Just throwing them on there is like not super helpful to me. Like, do people even use the chat box tool for communication? How am I supposed to know? And and
I
so on
don't.
and so forth. Right, yeah. I prefer Microsoft Clippy personally, but, yeah, and then there's that's a throwback Thursday. But I also, I have heard of the good work the mental health clinician has done, but that's because I serve on other, like, boards and committees that not all my colleagues have. Does that make sense? So I feel like tentatively, yes, but it would be great if we could just get some background on.
On just the success rate?
Yeah, or like, even with the diversion beds with Evoke Wellness, I think we're also still currently trying to figure out what their deal is, because they like change names or, it seems like it's fine, but I also am not super sure. Yeah, and then with the IT stuff, it's like, that was a need that we named, what, like, a couple years ago? Like, is that still the vibe? Is that, yeah.
Yes, we only have one cybersecurity analyst now. And so if this one were to go away, and this is an actual person, so that was the reason why we also put the recommended to continue, is if it was actual people and it was gonna mean reducing the force by having vacancies, then that's why we put the recommended to continue. Just so that y'all were aware that that was not a vacant position. Those are ongoing staffed current positions.
That would be helpful to just have another notation that this is, which are actual, it's a person in that position.
So it's a tentative, yes, supportive, like, information would be helpful. Like even the homelessness committee, we talked about eviction prevention services and have, talked to Trala, and we had concerns and they kind of got addressed, but like also kind of not, but mostly yes.
I could drop the
Yeah.
funding on that because I know we're not getting what
Right.
we're paying for, but I think that if more people knew about the program,
Right.
it would happen.
Yeah, so just, it would be cool if like the whole council kind of understood
Right.
a little bit more about each of those.
Okay. Mr. Paselk?
Yeah, I'm for keeping all of them for now.
Okay. And Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, especially on efficacy, I agree. I guess for the mental health clinician, and I know I asked this in CJR, but I don't remember the answer. Did we approach, and Alyssa, help me, the acronym, MHDD? What is it? I know it's mental
the name
health.
of the company?
What is it?
Thank you.
LMHO, LMHA, Local Mental Health Authority.
There you go.
Okay. Close.
Did we approach them on potentially, because she's under them currently, correct?
Correct. She is currently their employee, and I have approached Anthony Nguyen, who is the director for this region, repeatedly. He did in fact seek grants. He was unsuccessful.
Okay. Is that are they gonna be continuing that search, or was it sort of just like hey, we did it, it didn't work,
So,
y'all are gonna have to take care of it, or?
yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if it's like, they are perpetually looking for grants just because they have also experienced like cuts in their funding. So, yeah, the last we talked about it in the MHCC, the Mental Health Coordinating Committee, yeah, they're constantly looking for money. I don't know if they're also specifically looking for money for this, but I'm assuming so. But I think we're inviting Anthony to the next CJR committee.
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Are
Okay.
we seeking, or searching for grant dollars for this also, I hope?
Are we?
Yeah.
No, because one or the other entity can apply for the HHSC, Health and Human Services Commission funding, so we can't both apply for it.
Are there other sources of funding?
No, yeah, through foundations, but to my knowledge, we've not had any success like they have had in Comal County, specifically New Braunfels. They have a foundation there that supports their mental health initiative.
But it's a local foundation?
Mhm, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
some of the foundation money that I know they've looked through, like, will not, governmental, like, cities cannot be recipients, so it's like, but they can apply, or like they have unique ways of being able to approach the, like, foundation grant support as well. So, yeah, I think it makes sense that they're trying to explore those. Yeah, we're all in a tough
Yeah, thank
position.
you for I get the foundation, so, but when you're talking about HHSC, the duplicative grant submission, are those grants, I'm just wondering if a grant submission from us would carry more weight for HHSC as an agency than the local mental health authority? I'm not trying to be presumptuous, but was that discussion made prior to them submitting that grant to maybe increase the likelihood of us somebody being awarded something?
There was a conversation in the Behavioral Advisory Team and the Mental Health Coordinating Committee, lots of acronyms, about we need to deconflict with these grant applications. Matthew Gonzalez, the health director for the county, we all had that conversation, and it was decided in those meetings, which were, I want to actually say mid-2025, that the best applicant in this case, because she is currently their employee and they were seeking to sustain the funding, was Hill Country. So Anthony did in fact apply. That doesn't mean that it can't change in 2026. I will ask that question. I mean, we can ask that question collectively of Anthony when he comes before the Criminal Justice Reform Committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the PALS partnership for the animal people, I'm not trying to sit here, I'm just asking. Where is that $45,000 coming from? I guess I'm curious, because given organizations like that typically are HSAB, was that ARPA dollars that?
It was HSAB previously, but I was one who supported not leaving it in HSAB and having to compete with like the food bank and the women's shelter, because this is associated with a city department with the animal shelter. And what they do helps the animal shelter, because the more people who will, as Bob Barker used to say, spay or neuter your pet, please. So the more people who do that, hopefully fewer pets end up at the animal shelter.
It's
For
not
sure.
hopefully, it's.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
It's.
you're right.
Yeah, I wasn't showing any opposition. I appreciate the context. It helps me. Okay. Yeah, efficacy on definitely the things that were mentioned by Ms. Garza, I do share. And I'm definitely for sure, that transit federal funding expiration, that is something I definitely am in favor of more than anything. Yeah.
Yep, we need to keep that running.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody has said all to all of these, which is great. We said keep it on the list, but we did say we need more information. I'm going to say 3 or 4 sentences, some statistics, something to let us know about these programs. And so on now to, next slide. Social services, take it away, Mr. Locke.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. The next couple slides just provides a historical look at funding allocated through the Human Services Advisory Board and the Community Development Block Grant. This is information that City Council has asked for in the past. So it just shows from fiscal year 22 through 26, each agency that has received funding for each one of those years, and then the total amount. And this particular chart is just sorted by the agency that has received the most.
This is specifically from HSAB money. This isn't taking into consideration ARPA or CDBG or anything else.
Correct, yes, ma'am. This is just HSAB.
Gotcha.
What is outside agency funding?
Oops.
It's about the 9th one down. In a
Outside
white stripe.
agency.
150,000.
It is ARPA funding.
That is our.
The outside agency funding is.
Okay.
Okay, apparently I just lied to you. The outside agency funding is ARPA funding, so that would be ARPA in addition to the HSAB.
Oh, when ARPA kicked in, this isn't money going out, this is money coming in.
Correct.
Got it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I tell you what, I thank you so much for
And
this, because
actually
I
this-
wanted this information for so long, and I think you provided it last year. I'm sorry, Ms.
Right.
Griffith
See,
provided, whomever.
I wanted the information, but I also wanted to know every funding source that we've given to.
And so this addresses your question, and it does show that I answered incorrectly earlier, because apparently embedded in this is some ARPA award, and you can see the very bottom line shows the total ARPA awarded. So in FY '22 was 170,000, '23 was 169,000, and then 100,000 in '24, for a total of 439,000.
Wait, what?
So some of this funding was ARPA, and it's not just HSAB.
Oh, so some of the funding on the chart, it wasn't just like a lump sum of, so this is ARPA and Human Services?
Yes.
Money.
The majority of it is HSAB, because you look at the bottom of all of it, the 2.8 million is HSAB and 439,000 is ARPA.
How much of this ended up back in our coffers because something happened and things changed with the grantee, and they ended up not spending the money? Do we have?
That
Because this is
information I don't
reimbursement
have.
money now, right? This is reimbursement?
Yes, ma'am.
For the
it
most
is-
part.
Yes.
Right, because like, we gave a lot more money to BR, the Blanco River Regional
BR3T.
Recovery Team than $37,000, right?
Yeah, but that was a direct ARPA. It didn't come through HSAB.
Right, so then this just is HSAB.
I think this only includes the funding, the ARPA funding that went through the HSAB process.
Right.
You're correct,
Right.
that there were some organizations that received it directly, and that is not included in here.
Yeah, because I don't see Mission Able or the other one that I
Or
can never.
Operation Triage.
That's it.
Or, yes.
Right.
I would think it's that, and then you also have CDBG. So those are the other,
There's another page of CDBG. It's the next slide.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is what it is. There's some changes that we could, wait a minute. Where'd the CDBG slide go? Oh, next one, okay. I knew it was there. Yeah, if this could include some of those other things, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to see just like what the city has invested in these social service or social service adjacent programs, like overall as well. That would be helpful to me for like the next.
Can you clarify what you mean with that?
So, like, I get that this is broken down by HSAB funding, right? And then we have, I think, a slide with CDBG, but I would find it beneficial to also have, like, the drill down of the ARPA money that didn't go through HSAB. Because when we talk about investing in social services, I don't think our neighbors really see it as different funding sources. It's just, it would be good to be able to explain to our neighbors the overall investments in social services.
But if that's the case, then we need to also include probably all your utility assistance and all the other things that are provided, if
yeah,
you wanted to look
absolutely.
at those kinds of,
Okay.
because, yeah.
That would be good, because right here it says total ARPA awarded. That's just through HSAB, not the other, because the Mission Able and the other ones are not here.
Yes.
Maybe it's another page, rather
Right.
than integrate here. And often we get these sorted different ways, and I appreciate this one most to least, but I think another one in alphabetical order. So we could find one if we were looking for it. It'd be great. So
And if you can give us the Excel sheets, so we could play around
make
with
that
it.
happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Amanda.
So utility assistance, I'm going to call it ARPA Direct, would be helpful. But what else do you need to tell us before we get to decision points?
On this one, there is a slide just about the HSAB allocation. that the general fund's contribution to HSAB increased from 550 to 750 in fiscal year '26. And what the current budget policy states is that beginning in fiscal year '27, for the next fiscal year, the funding level for HSAB will increase by the inflation adjustment allowed for the operating budgets of departments within the general fund, not to exceed 2.5%. So that's the inflator to the $750,000.
Okay. So let's move on to the next slide and get to the decision points.
Okay, before we get to the decision points, it's just the same list, only with the community development block grant allocations. And it just provides all of the agencies that have received funding from that federal grant.
Actually, it looks more like anything that's gotten funded, because I see sidewalk and some stuff that we did in addition to the social service agencies.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but that's good. That means this is all of it.
Mhm.
This is great. Yeah, I'd love to have these spreadsheets and, but the additional information that we talked about. Okay, and here we are.
So the first decision point is HSAB funding increases at the same level of departments as we just shared. And how is HSAB funding impacted if city department operating budgets are decreased? Is there an impact to HSAB funding?
And y'all are wanting us to answer that?
That's a very interesting choice of words.
Yeah, I don't know what this means. If you're asking if we want to continue funding at where we were, plus to follow our previous budget policy, that it goes up, whatever that other slide said. I'm not sure what we're being asked.
This was to get clarity, because if HSAB was going to be treated like departments, the question had come up, so if departments have to cut, then does HSAB stay the same and we don't cut that? Or do we need to look at the same amount there? That was the question, and the question could be, or the answer could be, leave it static, and they just wouldn't grow. That's fine, we just need clarification, that was the
need to know.
question. That's right.
So if the departments do not increase by the 2.5, we're not talking about decreasing the 750 right now, we're just talking about, if we get
Yeah, we
into
are.
further details, we're just not gonna increase it to 2.5%.
That's the question, that is the question, is that if departments have to cut $100,000 like they did in the past, or any amount that they have to cut, is it council's direction to keep HSAB flat and just not increase, but don't decrease it? That was the question.
I am okay with sticking with that we don't increase it if we don't have budgetary availability, but I don't want to decrease it in any way.
Yeah, that's the answer that we need, is just to know that that's the direction that y'all want to go with that.
I
That's
agree
where I
with that, and it's not like it couldn't be subject to being decreased, but it would be on the furthest down the list, right? Like, we don't want to touch our human services.
No,
No,
I
it
think
would-
she's asking right now, do you want to make sure that it doesn't,
Well, yeah.
That it doesn't
stays the same.
decrease,
Yeah,
right?
I don't want to decrease.
Like if, in other words, because we're gonna go and develop the budgets, right? And so if it gets to a point where when John is getting the certified tax rolls, Mr. Locke is getting the certified tax rolls, and it shows that, okay, we got less money than we thought, and so then I'm having to go back to departments and say we have to cut money, do you want us to touch social services or not? And that's really the question, and if y'all's question, if the answer is no, then that just gives us the clarity that we
she
need.
just needs to know.
Right.
And I'm not trying to dissuade anybody or anything, but we did go from 550 to 750 last year, which was a big jump. Just stating a fact, not trying to talk anybody into or
Following
out
the
of anything.
recommendation of the board. We concurred with the recommendation that the board gave. I asked on the message board, the question posed on the slide is meant, it just feels very leading. For me, I am absolutely, similar to my colleagues, not entertaining any discussion about decreasing this budget. I have worked with y'all the entire way, and this was the one thing that we agreed on as a council to address. The return on these investments is incalculable. There is so much that social service agencies do, all the ones included on these lists that have been previously awarded, that we as a city have never had the capacity and will not have the capacity to do, which equally helps all of the departments here. And so,
Right.
no, I'm not interested in decreasing this at all.
Yeah, similar to
Okay.
my stance the last 5 years, I think that the word is an investment. The more we invest in our neighbors, the more they could show up to work, the more that they could earn money, put it back into the economy, and just, it provides a safer and a better well-being for our community. So I think it's an investment.
As a person who's talked about increasing this for
Yes, Mayor.
in the 90s, I said, hey. Okay, Mr. Scott, where are you? Do not decrease. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, so I guess my answer would be I would not want to automatically decrease the funding. So like if we're cutting, departments a certain percentage across the board, I don't want to automatically cut HSAB that same percentage. That being said, I mean, if we have to make the hard decision to look at cutting funding, I'm not entirely opposed to it. But I don't want it to be an automated decision just based on other issues or other decisions that are being made automatically.
Okay, we have given direction that we want to keep the dollars there, and all but one said, and no, do not drop below that. Okay, on to hotel tax dollars.
Yes, Mayor. The hotel occupancy tax fund accounts for the 7% occupancy tax and 2% venue tax, and it supports marketing and promotion of the city, tourist development activities, downtown events and promotion, improvement of the arts, and historic restoration and preservation. The state law allows hotel tax to be used in one of these 9 categories. So, currently the city uses a convention center and visitor information center. We have the advertising and promotion of the arts, historical restoration or preservation projects. We also, the wayfinding signage for tourists and sites and attractions. So any use of hotel tax just needs to fit into one of those 9 categories. The assumptions for the hotel tax fund assume, we always take an extremely conservative approach with hotel tax, given the impact that the COVID pandemic had on the hotel industry. And so it assumes a 1% growth annually. That's what the forecasts are going to see was built based on. Just looking at the 3 and 5 year average, you can see the 3-year average was 7% and the 5-year 17%. On the expense side, it's that personal and operational expenses will increase by 3% annually. Just as a note, the city is onboarding a firm that will automate hotel tax collection process. Now it's more of a manual process, and will also provide auditing services. We haven't audited hotels in quite a while, and through this agreement, 3 hotels a year will be audited.
And that will cost us how much?
The,
Unknown at this time?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Unknown at this time?
It is known.
I don't
It
want to
just
spend
slips
a lot
my
of time
memory
on it.
exactly how much it is.
That's okay. I think there's funds there to,
Oh, yeah, it's built into the budget.
thank you.
This is what the hotel tax forecast looks like. And it also has some historical information. So just based on those assumptions, you can see that revenues would exceed expenses in all the out years with the exception of 29 and 30. And at some level, you would expect that if we're estimating revenues to increase at 1% and expenses to increase at 3%, at some point, expenses are going to exceed. This will be an interesting year for us. Last fiscal year, the Embassy Suites was undergoing the remodel, and so we saw a reduction in hotel tax collections. They have since, increased their rates, and they're our largest hotel tax generator. So we'll see operating on a full year what hotel taxes look like this year.
But in this particular case, we don't have control over the revenue, only the expenses.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that 2% goes to pay off the conference center, correct? We're only talking about the 7% here?
Yeah, this particular forecast does show the 2%, but there's a corresponding expense, for that 2% because, as you said, it has to be used to pay off the conference center debt.
Okay.
This just has a breakdown of the actual expenses in the hotel tax fund by allowable category, and it just shows the percent that was spent in each one of those categories. So the largest, the Convention Center Visitor Info Center, you can see in fiscal year '24 was 37%, and fiscal year '25 is 23%.
Why do we show those on one line together?
I'm sorry,
Why would we not show Convention Center expense and Visitor Information Center separately?
the state categorizes them together,
Together?
so we're just showing them together, yes.
Do we know that information separately?
Yes, we would be able to get that information separately.
Okay.
So if it's something that council would rather see separate, we can break it out separate.
I would.
Okay.
Okay.
And that brings us to the decision points for the hotel tax fund. And the first one is continued budgeting revenues based on the conservative historical trends. You saw in the forecast that used under that method, we were fine at least until the out years in 2029, 2030.
We've got time to make adjustments.
Yes.
Okay, council, where are you on this one? Continue budgeting based on historical conservative trends.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I hear a yes from Mr. Scott, from Mr. Basel. I'm seeing a thumbs up from Ms. Garza. I'm a yes. Ms. Rodriguez
I'm a
is
yes,
nodding
ma'am.
yes. Did you say yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got you down. Next item.
Is to continue allocating funding for historical restoration and preservation based on capacity. The maximum would be around $500,000. State law limits us to 15%.
I'll go first, and I'm going to say, heck yeah, finally. I'll just leave it at
Yes.
that.
I'm right there too.
Okay, I'm hearing a yes from Mr. Basel, Mr. Mendoza, from Mr. Scott. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Garza? Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Rodriguez?
Not trying to throw a wrench. What do we mean by historical restoration and preservation? Like, how are we making these decisions on the appropriate projects?
The first one was, we had said we wanted to work on the Dunbar building, the second building. And then staff has brought to us a policy, and we talked about it a little bit, but not a whole lot, because we all agreed that, at least for now, it's going towards the Dunbar building, but staff has presented us a policy. Am I correct on that, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, we have presented council policy, and council's desire was to suspend the allocation first on the Dunbar. With regard to, in the future, how do we spend money on historical restoration and preservation? We follow the state statute, and we look at projects that would conform with that state statute. And so,
yeah.
and so I can't tell you specifically, like, it's for windows, or if it's for roofs or something like that. We look at the state statute first, we always conform with that, and then we ensure that the projects that we're targeting conform with state statute.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would expect that. I guess my question was more so, do we have a running list? Let's say we check the box off on the economics building or home economics building.
Yes.
Do we have a running list of projects that we're talking about? And the reason I ask this, just to be so frank, is that we know that when it comes to this particular historical restoration and preservation, a very small subset of our population often determines what those projects are going to look like. And so I'm trying to see, do we have a running list of things that we're that are next on the list?
We have a list of other city-owned properties that could benefit from the use of this fund, and we can get that list to council, the properties themselves. I can't say for certain that we have an estimate of the repairs and renovations that are needed, but we do have a list.
Okay, and so prioritizing city-owned properties would be in that discussion, future
Yes.
discussion?
And that's in line with what we heard from council previously, which was to prioritize city-owned properties first
Okay.
before allocating other.
And this year, last year, is the first year we've ever put this money towards that use.
Right.
So it's not like we've had others
Right.
where people were left out or anything, because we haven't been doing it.
Right. I think part of the conversation, I don't know if it was that conversation or the first time this came up when we were like talking about, is this even like an allowable use? And then we figured that it was under certain parameters. My comments then are similar to Councilwoman Rodriguez's, which was the equity in the selection. I can't remember that conversation of prioritizing city buildings, but that makes sense. But also just like buildings like Centro, buildings like, you know, that have that historic aspect, but also that are connected with groups or populations that have been historically underinvested in and underrepresented. I remember, that was my commentary, I just don't remember where council landed on that.
And we certainly, at council's desire, could open that topic again. Where I distinctly remember the conversation ending was council wanted for us to prioritize city-owned properties first. But we can certainly provide the list of city-owned properties. And if council wants to bring up the topic again with other potential properties, that is under council's purview as well.
And that's what we were gonna do once we got Dunbar finished.
Right,
Okay,
that's
good,
right.
okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
We can bring that forward.
Because I think there was even a whole application process in the policy.
We can bring that forward then. What we can do is have the city-owned properties list, and then council can also talk about other properties in our community that you may desire to utilize this funding source.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm just glad we finally are doing this after years of me begging for it.
Mayor,
Yes,
quick
sir.
question, just education for me.
sir.
I'm new here, but how was it done before? Like, we said there was no prioritization or a certain group decided how this.
We were not allocating the money that could go to historical projects. It was just staying in with all the other things that we use hotel tax money for.
Okay.
And then we were having to scrape and save out of general fund to do these projects that we want to do, like the Dunbar building. And that's why I kept saying, I think there's another funding source. And finally, we got there.
And then to Ms. Rodriguez's point, the list of importance, who used to decide that?
There's
The list
not a
of- there
used
wasn't?
to, because we
It
did
didn't
not
exist.
allocate the dollars to do that.
Yeah, no, and my comment might have confused you. My comment was more so about historical historical preservation as a topic in this city in
Generally.
general.
Yeah.
In
Large.
general.
Not just in the city, like across the board, so, yeah.
Right, so I just
I
want to
didn't know
make,
if there was like a literal, something that we saw fixed here.
No.
Just, okay, that was a grand
it was
understatement.
just not wanting that same philosophy and practice being applied to this in the future, should we continue.
Well, yeah, what's been happening is departments have been scrambling because they're our buildings. So same as we need to fix some things here, and we need to fix some things at maybe the rec hall or other places. And because some of those buildings, Dunbar in particular, would be applicable to using this money. This was money that didn't come out of general fund, that we could legitimately use towards that. So now we're not having to pay for that out of general fund, which frees up a little general fund money.
Yeah,
That was the idea.
cool.
So to sum up the direction that we understand, complete the Dunbar Home Economics Building first, and then come back to council with the other list of city properties that could potentially benefit from this source, and then council will also bring forward other community properties that you also desire to be addressed, and then council will then determine the prioritization.
Yes.
Or I think maybe open up an application process.
Okay. Sure.
I think, rather than just who we might happen to personally know is on, this whatever, other buildings. There may be some other important buildings in town, and if we're gonna open it up, I would hate to ignore them.
That's fair. Thank you.
Are y'all good with that? It may be 3 years before we get to this point.
Yeah, I think, I'm okay with that. I do think that if, just for like awareness, it would be cool to know if you guys know, like, what y'all's hot takes are on existing buildings and properties. Does that make sense?
Could you restate that, please?
So like still getting from city staff, like a list of,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But definitely opening it up to the community
Yeah.
too, but like, I don't
Yes.
know.
But I mean, it would need to be a building that like there's a museum open to the public or something like that. It's not just that it is an old building.
There are still parameters that would
Yes.
apply for state statute. We would always make sure that legal reviews that
Yep.
to ensure that we're conforming with state statute.
Yes.
The
I'm
next
checking to
decision.
see if we have one of our staff members who has enlightenment to offer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rodney answered. I mean, I could go into detail, but he did a great job.
He answered it? Okay. All righty. Next item.
The next item, policy questions, and this is a discussion that originally stemmed from a Finance and Audit Committee meeting. And so the first is review how other cities use hotel occupancy tax revenue to financially support city council policy objectives without solely relying on the general fund. And the second is create a policy recommendations for allocating hot revenue by specific percentages to support city council policy objectives.
And the question is, do we want to move forward with these concepts?
Yes, ma'am.
Heck, yeah.
Only yes on both of those as
It's,
well.
I don't even want to go there, how long I've been asking for this.
Yes.
So this is fantastic. I've got Mr. Mendoza as 2 yeses. Mr. Pacelk, is that 2?
Yes.
And yeses from Mr. Scott. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes on both, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm a yes on both. I'm seeing 2 thumbs up from Ms. Garza and Ms. Rodriguez. Because anything that we can legitimately use some of this hotel tax for could free up some general fund dollars. Other considerations for hotel occupancy tax? If not, moving on.
Okay. The next fund is the Community Enhancement Fund, and it was established in January of 2016 for activities and programs contributing to the beautification and cleanliness of the city. The revenue source is the residential and commercial community enhancement fee, and you can see all the things that it supports, from beautification efforts, graffiti abatement, litter pickup, maintaining public flower beds, to mowing neighborhood parks and additional I-35 mowing. So the assumptions for this is that revenues would increase 3% annually. This is not from a rate increase, it's just from growth in the customer base. And the expenses would also increase by the same 3%. That's with personnel and operating expenses.
So, Ms. Reyes, we said 3% raise for the non-civil service. So are those coming out of, when we have personnel funded out of one of these, does that raise also come out of this, or does that come out of something over here?
It comes out of the fund that
Okay.
the people are funded out of.
Thank you.
And based on those assumptions, the forecast looks good for the Community Enhancement Fund across all the years.
That one does look good.
So the next slide is talking about fund balance. It should point out, you can see the middle row has the ending fund balance. So in fiscal year '26 is 1.5 million, and the required fund balance is 300,000. So there is a significant amount of fund balance there that could be used for one-time purposes. And so the next slide just shows some examples of what it could be used for. This is such as sprucing up along I-35, updating the signage and/or painting building exterior. That would cost approximately $75,000.
But aren't those privately owned? The sign?
Yes, believe that they would be private. It would be a grant program,
Okay.
starting a pilot program.
Okay. Got it.
And to the right, you have a fence on Sunset Acres, I-35 between Wonder World and Highway 123. That would cost about $250,000 to $300,000.
And would the pilot program idea apply to the fence as well, given those are private property? Like, would each property owner have to?
No, that would be more of a public use, because when TxDOT came in and did all their work, you know, other neighborhoods, they put in sound barriers and fences, and they didn't do that here. And it's, this neighborhood is one of our neighborhoods that needs help. So it would actually be working with TxDOT to be putting the fence in there along the edge of their right-of-way, so it wouldn't be individual properties, because then it'd be a mess having to deal with each
So
person.
it'd be in our
Yeah.
right away?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more
TxDOT right away.
So
Text
the,
dot right away.
so the approximate expenditure of that is accounting for like working with TxDOT on that? Because the reason I asked is because the question I had put on the message board was just given like we have local sign companies or, you know, who make signs, you have lumber companies, you have Lowe's, you have, I was trying to get at sort of like how do we stretch a dollar? And how can we collaborate with those companies to make these dollars stretch further to accomplish things like this?
Yeah, and I saw that a little bit ago, and
It might be a ridiculous question, but.
no, it's
No,
not.
it's
We do
not.
try, if it's a lower, let's say, you know, it's a sign that's under certain dollars amounts, we do try to do local, but based on the dollar amounts, we have state purchasing requirements that we have to go by, so it's low bid, whether they're local or they're not.
Okay.
But this is something that I think is, I'm gonna say, small enough that we would certainly want to ask our locals to bid.
Well, and
Yes?
I,
No?
well, no, they definitely would want them to bid. I'm not sure,
Mr.
Sam,
Gary?
if we could put something in the bid where they need to purchase their stuff local. I don't,
That's what I'm looking at. I would hate to do this and then find out all that money was spent elsewhere.
yeah.
And what I might offer in some of our grant programs, because these would be grant programs of the city, we can structure this as policy that if anyone wants to avail themselves of the grant program, that when they do the work, and could be reimbursement based, that they use local vendors to the
Right.
extent that we
Sort
have
of like an
local
incentive.
vendors.
But that's like the awning grant. Aren't we gonna control this whole thing? Because this isn't gonna go to the individual homeowners for
Yes, we're
this.
controlling the whole program and the expenditures, and we're still thinking this through, but we can model it after some of our existing grant programs where they are reimbursement based.
Who is the
It-
grant being given to?
It could be to the property owner, in this case, you know, the person that owns property, that owns that sign.
Oh,
And-
I'm looking at the fence.
Okay, the fence, okay, I'm talking about like where the individual property owner owns that piece of property, where it would be reimbursement based for them to fix up their sign. However, the requirement would be that they use local vendors. And I think that's what you're getting at, is to have the preference for local vendors. There are gonna be some nuances, like the one to the right, where we have a blend. You know, we're working with the state, et cetera. We have to follow our
Sure.
procurement rules.
Sure.
But when we're doing a reimbursement-based grant to a property owner, it is okay for us to require that they
Yeah,
use
but
local
the
vendors.
fence, that's not gonna go to A or 50 property owners.
No, that'll be one, and that will be purchasing to the letter because of the value and stuff.
Yeah, man, that's why I understand the working with TxDOT, it's gonna be a different scenario, but when I look at like the one on the left, the option on the left, the first thing that came to my mind was the facade grant that Main Street has. It's a very, I know you're familiar with it, very
Oh,
similar
very.
setup, reimbursement. And so emulating that on a larger scale for our businesses outside of the TERS, outside of downtown.
Right,
So
but
I like this idea.
But facade is a match.
Right.
Or
And
there's
however
some participation by the property owner. Is that what we're doing here, or we just wanna go in and fix it?
Right now, we're just getting where you want us
Yeah,
to
it's
go,
just
and then we'll
preliminary.
bake the cake.
Yeah.
We haven't put in the oven.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I get the preliminary nature of it. I was just trying to see again, like how we can stretch a dollar right now.
Oh, yes.
But I really like fundamentally really like these propositions, and I always appreciate the inclusion of Sunset Acres. So, yeah.
And on the Sunset Acres, one of the reasons this came up is because we just did the Love Where You Live project in there, and we're still continuing on this. So this just worked out really nice. It
But-
was something we really wanted to do anyway, and so
But if
we
we're
can do
talking
this.
about I-35 between Wonder World 123, that picture doesn't look right.
So that is just north of the Olive Garden. So it doesn't go all the way to Wonder World. It would go
Uh-huh.
about to the bar, or to the chicken place there where you turn to go to the school. That piece between there and where Olive Garden is.
Well, I'll tell you
Makes
what,
sense.
between Highway 80 and going north needs help too, so. But that's
Well,
more
that's why we'd
businesses
like
and
to
this is
start
more
using
people.
these funds for things like that, so.
And again, it's a pilot nature, so what we learn in one area, we can find
Right.
additional revenue sources, we can then expand that program. We want to get started on a pilot.
The idea here was to get some one-time things done and enhance our community.
Yes,
So this is good.
thank you.
Okay. So, council, I'm going to ask this one first, is do you want to budget uses of the fund balance for these two projects in particular? And then if there's money available, staff will bring us back some other thoughts. Does that sound good? That's what I'm going to be asking here. So I'm looking for a response, and you can say both is okay.
For me, both is fine.
I'm hearing from Mr. Scott, Mr. Mendoza, both is good. Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, both is good. Personally, I think I prioritize the fencing along Sunset Acres, but I'm good at moving forward with budgeting for both.
I think we were all leaning towards Sunset Acres being first, weren't we?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, somebody's got their mic open. Can you look and see what's up? Okay. This side of the dais?
If you're all happy with Sunset Acres being first, I-35 is all good. And as a reminder, just keeping things mowed just makes the place look a lot better. We already have a contractor that does it, and I know TxDOT makes their rounds, but just keeping I-35 looking spot clean, it's one of the cheaper ways to do it.
And McCarty also, because that's our conference center. That's some
everything.
new spec buildings that, as people go to look at the spec buildings, are going from 35 down to Rattler Road. So, yes.
A number of years back, I just remember there's a distinct separation when I saw, oh, Kyle's mowing now. There was like a day, it was just a week, I was like, oh, for whatever reason, I guess they got the staff, whatever the case was, but I was just like, it just makes it look so much better.
Council said as a priority, I guess. Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, ma'am, I'm for both. I really appreciate Mr. Carr, the suggestion. I love the ingenuity. I really do. My only question was, I remember the last time we had a discussion on the whole mowing of Highway 123, and with the recent TxDOT improvements, our maintenance and operation was gonna begin at some date. Has that already kicked in?
That's our next question, and I need to get Ms. Garza's response to this one.
Okay.
I'm supportive of the fence, Sunset Acres. Yeah, I would have to have more information on like how do we select, like what exterior, like if it's, yeah, like this isn't our property, but we're gonna go make it look cute for somebody who owns it. That's interesting. Yeah, so I would have to know more about the parameters.
Yeah, we've got other grants, and one of them was try to make dumpsters look better everywhere.
That's how I feel about that.
Down 35. Okay, we've completed this one, and Ms. Rodriguez, if you will pick up where you left off, please, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out when, I know they were gonna take care of it for a set period of time, and so I was trying to see when it would be our turn to take over those enhancements.
They are they're doing the punch list now, and the freeze didn't help because I think it killed a bunch of the plants and stuff. So hopefully they do that. Even though it hasn't been turned over yet, we are working with them, so we're making sure we're going in and we're not gonna get something that's gonna be a mess.
Right.
We do have some money that's set aside for the maintenance of that area, that will cover it for a while.
Okay.
From the TxDOT project itself.
Okay.
I gotta say, this looks better then, when I go to CapCog meetings, go up, I think it's McKinney Falls Parkway, they are planting cactus in their little medians, thornless cactus, and it's planted in in rows.
Otra vez with the cat.
And I'm just happy, I don't know who did it. I
Note
don't,
to
it's not
self,
a
no
text dot row,
cactus, no rose. Got it.
but it's,
We're really gonna go down Cactus Gate again.
just, yeah.
Everybody has a landscaping opinion.
Anyway, you should see that. I can't get a picture because I'm driving, but anyway. And
Just
then as
mow
it
it.
narrows, there's some little like, I don't know, monkey grass clumps that died in the freeze.
Mr. Carr, you had just said that they're having to review everything because TxDOT planted something that froze. So let's say TxDOT goes out there and redoes their planting, we take over it. Are we just going to have to replace everything they placed down again because we know it's going to freeze again and it's not? the
Well,
most-
nature's nature.
Okay.
But I think, and I'm not sure that it's actually dead. Maybe it's just, you know, we gotta wait for the spring to come, and so do they. Once it's been in and it's hardy, we probably won't have the problem, but, you know, all these plantings are pretty new, so they haven't been established. That could have very been, you know, well been why there's some issues. We're working with, make sure that the irrigation's correct, so, and all that. But, trust me, Amy Tomites on top of this, like,
Did
to
they
just-
consult us regarding what got planted there? Is it on our plant list?
unfortunately, no.
Just because
I kind of knew the answer to that, but
it's been annoying growing up here and having to figure out what's TxDOT, what's the city, you know, because when we see something being built, we want to blame somebody. Why is it the city's responsibility to take over and maintain TxDOT's property? Because this is TxDOT property, right, that we're going to be maintaining?
It was a process of enhanced of beautification that they said we could do, that they would fund and stuff, but then we'd have to take over the maintenance. Otherwise, it would have just been maybe grass. So that was something before my time that was decided that, yes, it's an enhancement that we would like. And then eventually, it's just like we take care of the Highway 80 little area
Yeah.
there.
And, well, okay, thank you, sir.
They're TxDOT.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
And I would add to that, of course, you know, lessons learned. You know, as we get into this situation again, we'll learn from this one, including, of course, plant palette, obligations, et cetera. Do we want to enhance? Are we okay with the standard? Things like that. So this was a good opportunity for us to do something different than what is traditionally done, and we've learned some lessons from it.
Is there any, so again, growing up here in a neighborhood that has alleyways, and we have for the past several years been told, sorry, there's no budget for us to mow those alleyways, even though most of us don't have gates to get back there. I'm finding it hard to agree with this when we still can't take care of alleyways. And we're gonna go ahead and just decide to mow I-35 and take care of.
We're not
Oh,
mowing
and I'm sorry,
I-35.
we'll maintain highway intersections here when I still can't get Sunset Acres to get their alleys cut. I'm just,
Sunset Acres has alleys?
some of them have alleys out there. Patricia Drive has an alley, goes right behind it.
Oh, I remember that
Yes,
one.
ma'am.
Yeah, that was part of the Love Where You Live project, 'cause
Okay.
I was mowing the alleys.
And thank you, by the way.
Yeah,
I know you.
you know, when there's volunteers and stuff, so I think that's how we're gonna have to address it, without absorbing the cost, and that just makes the most sense. And we do mow 35, we supplement the state.
I was gonna say, is there any way to say, let's say that 250 is way overpayment for what they can do for us in a matter of time? Can we send them out to, hey, if you're not doing anything, get out to this area, cut that yard, cut the alleyway, or cut this easement out there? Can we extend this out if they're not doing their job on 123 and 35, or if they've done their job, can we expand it to
Well,
other beautification around the areas?
we have an idea that we're working on the whole mowing issue that might deal with this, but we still have to do some manipulating with that, so.
Okay.
Hopefully you'll be hearing about that from Amy here in the
Oh,
future.
cool. Okay, thank you, sir.
So were you saying that the alley mowing might end up being done by volunteers?
It's the homeowner's responsibility, and
Okay.
so some do and some can't, depending on,
Right.
the age and stuff. And so when they can't, that's when we do the Love Where You Live kind of projects where we get volunteers or hopefully maybe a business, a church, a frat or something that can get to adopt neighborhoods and stuff.
And if I could add to that component of the alleys, we went through an exercise about a year and a half ago to go through our mowing contract.
Oh, yes.
And all the properties that we were paying to be mowed. We uncovered a number of different private properties that we had been paying to mow.
Is your
including
microphone
business-
on?
I'm sorry?
Is your microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And so we went through that exercise because we are in a cost savings mode.
Right.
And so unfortunately, some of the property owners, residential and business, had to then take on their responsibility. We worked with them throughout that process in a very cordial manner, but the entire exercise was so that we could reduce the costs of the city's general fund and assign those costs to the property owner. But we had been doing that for a number of years.
Did we offer them the opportunity that if they wanted to pay us to do it, we would keep doing it?
I believe that was one concept that was discussed, but because we're talking about a significant number of property owners, there would have to be some sort of contractual arrangement that would then be developed, and then, of course, then you get into the managing of all those contracts.
And
Just asking.
this process saved us a couple $100,000, so it was significant.
Okay, so I've got to go around the table on this first one. And this is coming out of what I'm going to call excess fund balance. Is that correct?
This one would actually be a part of a regular operating expense. If I go back to the forecast, you see each one of
It says
the.
increase operating expense.
Yes, ma'am. So we're, right now, you can see in 27, we're forecasting revenues over expenses of 284,000, and that grows to 310,000. So what we're asking to do is to increase operating expenses by 250,000, up to 250,000 for the annual maintaining of Highway
Okay.
123 and I-35 plantings.
Okay. I'm trying not to bring up Craddock.
Wouldn't be a budget meeting.
But the idea there is the maintenance would be done by folks in the neighborhood. How's that working out for us? So I'm going to have a problem voting for this one if we're not addressing Craddock, which is an issue that we created, and we're not, in my opinion, not doing what we need to do there.
Mr. Anderson, are there any plans for the Craddock that we need to talk about? I know you've been working on looking at the Highway 81, and is Craddock another one that we're looking at addressing?
Personally, the section that just has nice grass can be kept looking pretty good. They can be mowed, but the rest of it, with the plants that are just growing over into the street and.
Yeah, we've been we've been working on that. I know it's been a problem, and it was just, some parts were put in wrong. I know that's, Amy's got a kind of a major rework coming for that.
So we gonna spend more money on it?
No, it costs a little bit, but it's within her budget.
It's
so,
more work than
Yeah.
parts. Okay, so I know we've got folks that are waiting for us to get to some things in the future right here. So let's go around the table on this one, the 250, which we can cover with the budget that we have, to do these 123 and 35 plantings that we were not consulted with our plant palette.
My only question is, maybe I missed it, are we maintaining them, or is our service provider maintaining them?
I was assuming it would be added to the contract that we
no,
have. Was I
it's-
assuming wrong?
For those, it's actually our Hort crew team that goes out and does it.
Our local people, I mean, our staff.
Our staff.
Okay. All right, I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the gals around town that maintain a lot of these areas, and they're understaffed as it is. So if we wanted to do this, they're gonna need extra funds, so,
And that's what this is for.
yeah. And so I would be for that. If that's what we're doing, then
Okay.
they're gonna need it.
I got you as a yes. Ms. Garza? Rodriguez? I guess, I'm sure Gonzalez's phone died again. Mr. Mendoza? Yeah, that's kind of where I am. Mr. Scott? I'm a yes, but there we go. Let's move on to electric. I'm sorry, wait a minute, what is next? We already did that. Let's not do it again.
Okay, now we're moving to our enterprise funds, and as the mayor pointed out, the first one is electric. The primary revenue source in electric are the rates charged to customers for electric service use, and those revenues support everything with the electric utility. So the assumptions that you'll see on the next forecast, this is the same forecast that City Council saw during the fiscal year 26 budget. The way that the electric and water wastewater both work is the rate models and information is shared with the Citizens Utility Advisory Board first, and then that board makes a recommendation to council. So there's no change from what City Council saw during the budget process to what you're going to see right now, because the information has not been updated. But on the revenues, we will continue with the incremental rate adjustment assumption that's the guidance that City Council last gave us. So slow as you go, small as you go, instead of every now and then doing a really large increase. And in the electric fund, according to that forecast, the annual rate adjustment is about 1.2% on average. There is a policy change that starting that where the QAB will review the process earlier in order to have rate recommendations to council in June. That is our goal, is to be able to get this information to City Council sooner than what we've done in the past.
And that's all the rates, not just electric?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Yeah. And on the expense side, the operating expense increased by 2.3% on average, and personnel by 3% on average. And this is what the future years look like. It has the revenues and expenses, and the expenses are broke out by personnel, operating, and debt service. There's a line for the capital improvement project funding as well going across. What you see highlighted in yellow is the effective rate increase that we shared before. One of the things that I wanted to point out on here is the debt service coverage ratio. It's a real technical term, and it's still an important term as it relates to rates, because you're going to see it a little bit later on the decision point. And just as a refresher, the debt service coverage, if you take all of the operating revenues and you subtract the personnel and operating expenses, what's remaining is what can cover debt service. And we have built into our bond covenants that at minimum, the minimum legal amount is 1.2. So that means that what's remaining has to cover debt service once, and then 20% of that amount again, 1.2 times. We've had our financial advisor here in the past who has who shared what the recommendation would be. A healthy debt service coverage ratio is in the 1.4 to 1.5 range. And in the past, that was the guidance that was given to staff by council, was to work towards that healthy range. Right now, we're just meeting the legal minimum. And so as you look here with those different rate adjustments based on all these assumptions, you can see that it is moving upward. If you look at the green color on the very bottom, that's the debt service coverage ratio, where we would actually hit a 1.4 in fiscal year 29. This slide just provides a history of the electric rate increases. And that brings us to the decision points.
Okay, council, just going around the table on this one, that it looks like we're heading in that direction, so it's not like we have to make any changes, that we're gonna get there.
Yes, ma'am. That is the guidance that we have right now. And so everything that you saw on that forecast slide is moving us in that direction.
Okay. I don't see Mr. Gonzalez. Ms. Garza? Yes. Ms. Garza's a yes. Mr. Pacelk?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez? Mr. Scott? Mr. Mendoza?
Absolutely.
Moving on to fluid things.
So next is the Water Wastewater Fund. And similar to the electric fund, the rate recommendations come from QAP. So it has a lot of the same background information as the electric fund did. The annual rate adjustment in the Water Wastewater Fund averages 2% across all the forecast years. And again, this is the same forecast that City Council saw during the budget process. So this has the same information, and you can see from what the rate adjustment was in '26 was 10%, and then you see is 4%, 0, 2%, 1.4 through 2030. And the very bottom line is just a debt service coverage ratio, and we're moving towards the 1.4 here as well by the time we get to 2030. These are just a history of the water wastewater utility rate changes, and that takes us to the decision points.
Okay, council, same question as before, and we're on track to do this. So this is really a confirmation. Was that a yes, Mr. Scott?
I'm a yes as well.
Yes, Mr. Mendoza. I'm a yes. Ms. Rodriguez? Mr. Pacelk? And Ms. Garza? Everybody's indicating yes in some form or fashion, which is fine. Let's talk about stormwater.
Okay. So the assumptions for the stormwater forecast is that revenues will increase from account growth by an average of 3% annually. So there's no rate adjustments in the forecast that you're going to see. And on the expense side, again, personnel and operational expenses increased by 3%. We wanted to include in here in fiscal year 23 and 24, the general fund was fully financing all the stormwater CIP projects. That was a total of about $14 million. And due to the funding challenges in the general fund, we had to move away from that. And now the stormwater funds up to $5 million, and anything over the $5 million, the general fund can assist with up to its capacity of the $10 million. So this is what stormwater looks like. This is without a rate adjustment. It does look like by the time we get to fiscal year FY30 that there would be a rate adjustment needed in the stormwater fund. And this is the history of the rate adjustments for the stormwater fund. And the decision point is really to continue that hybrid approach where $5 million for stormwater is covered by the stormwater fund and the remaining using the general fund's capacity.
Okay. Wasn't that long ago, general fund funded it all. Okay. Council, what you think?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good on this as well.
Pacelk, yes. Mendoza, yes. Ms. Rodriguez, yes. Mr. Scott, yes. Ms. Garza? And Mr. Gonzalez is not on. All right. Resource recovery. This is where there's exciting things going on.
So the resource recovery covers a lot of different things, and you can see what listed there from residential trash recycling, green waste pickup, to downtown trash collection, household hazardous waste, reuse warehouse, and brush drop-off, and a mattress removal program. So the forecast shows that revenues will increase 3% annually, and approximately 2% on average will be from a rate increase. On the expense side, like as you have seen, personnel and operational expenses would increase by 3%. The Texas Disposal Systems contract, which is the largest expense in this fund, will increase 3% annually through fiscal year 30. And this is what the fund would look like. There is capacity, as you can see, of revenues over expenses by roughly $400,000. We have been building a fund balance that we'll use to at least partially fund a future resource recovery center. And at some point, we would be able to issue debt for the difference and use that $400,000 to cover the debt service on it if we didn't want to wait until we could fully cash fund it.
Okay.
This is the history of the resource utility rates. And there weren't any specific dissension points here, just if city council had anything that.
Can we go back to, on the revenues, it says increase 3% annually, 2% rate increase. Is that the Texas TDS rate?
Is that what, I'm sorry?
And where it says approximately 2% rate increase, is that the Texas Disposal Systems?
That
Or
is what's
that-
driving that rate increase. Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Are we, well, let me put it this way. Is that 2% on top of the TDS 3%?
No, ma'am, that would be overall 2%
Okay.
to what the customer is paying. It's just that 3% from TDS is what's driving the need for that 2% adjustment.
Well, if they're 3%, how come we only need 2%? If the 2% is not part of the 3%?
Yeah, the increased customer count
Okay.
is the other side of it.
But even the increased customer count is going to have a 3% increase.
Yes. And in factoring all of that in, it has us looking like this, the forecast looking like this.
Okay. So, council, looks like there's not any big decisions here. I would just like to say that y'all are doing a great job. Ms. Tomites does a great job, and she was recognized by the San Marcos River Foundation last weekend.
Very passionate.
For the work that she does, and she doesn't wait to be told what to do.
No.
And so, she does a fantastic job. I just wanted to acknowledge that here.
Appreciate it.
And
yeah.
note her recent award.
Mayor,
Anything?
I just had one more question as it relates to
ahead.
TDS, just out of curiosity. The 3% annual increase, did we know that at the time that we agreed?
Yes.
Okay, we did, so we could factor that in year over year, that was expected?
Yes, and
Okay.
so we are actually we will be going out, we're at the last extension
Okay.
when we approved it last time, so we will be going back out to bid, probably starting that process this year, because it takes a while to get through the process. And we'll just have to see what comes. Now, the good thing about TDS, just a little history for you that you weren't here. So when we had COVID and stuff and had a bad time, they had us by contract where they could raise it 3%. They voluntarily did not do that.
That's right, you did say that last year. I probably asked the same question, that's right.
So
Okay.
they've been a really good partner and then that one year, when the fuel prices went through the roof, they asked for an increase, and we did that $1 surcharge for the year, just to help them get through with that, because if you add it on to a percentage, that's, goes forward, where if it's the surcharge, that was 1 year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carr.
And they also treat us very well and do excellent
Yeah.
work.
And that's, so just something to remember when we come forward with the new contract, whether it's TDS or another one. These are long-term contracts. And the reason you do that is because that's how they budget. If they have to budget, they're going to lose it in 5 years. They've got to charge a whole lot. So, there's I don't know what it was on this one, but it was like 4 or 5 5-year extensions. These garbage contracts are 20 years for the most part.
Yeah.
Or can be up to the end. And that's just so that, because they have to buy cans and trucks and all that's expensive, so
Yeah.
they
It was
spread it out over the contract.
02 or 03, because it was right after I left.
Yeah.
I got counsel to go out for bid, but then I was gone before the contract was voted on.
Yeah. So you will be seeing a new contract here within the next couple of years.
Okay. Anything else on resource recovery? Moving on to the airport.
Okay, the primary revenue sources of the airport are the commercial and agricultural leases, the hangar rentals, the fuel flowage fees, and it supports the operations at the regional airport. The revenue airport assumptions they're really held flat to FY '26. It does not include any property tax revenues generated at the airport. There's been some discussion over the past couple of years of the property tax generated at the airport, reinvesting that into the airport. And with the, of course, that would be an additional hit to the general fund, and given the general fund's condition, we haven't moved forward with that. On the expense side,
So you're saying that the property tax revenues are going into the general fund now. The question is, do we want to dedicate them to the airport?
yes, ma'am.
Got it, thank you.
On the expense side, the expenses increased by 1% annually. The base contract increased by 2% annually, and the indirect cost allocation increases by 3% annually. And it does not restore the $90,500 of COVID funding that the city was providing to the Texas Aviation Partners, the operators, to fund a position. And the city is considering a partial or full restoration subject to the available capacity and meeting potential fund balance requirements of at least giving some of that funding back to them so that they can help offset the cost of that position. So this is what the airport's forecast looks like. Just based on those assumptions, there's capacity across, this forecast period through 2030. And you can see that the ending fund balance is also growing. It is currently 152,000, and it would be up to 418,000 if this held true. So one of the decision points, we do not have a fund balance requirement established in the airport fund. And so do we want to establish a fund balance requirement? A lot of the other funds have employees in them, and that's why we have those established at higher amounts because of the employees. This fund does not have employees, so starting at, something like a 30-day or a 60-day would be more along the lines of what you would expect here, because there are no employees in this fund.
If a tornado came through and tore up a bunch of buildings, where would the money come from to fix it?
The general fund.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
I knew the answer to that,
Yes.
but I thought we should all know.
Mayor, I'm a big yes on the fund balance requirement.
I had Mr. Mendoza at yes for the fund balance. Ms. Garza's got thumbs up. Mr. Pacell?
For that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm for that, but I have a question about the COVID dollars. Are we going to talk about that too, as an action item?
That is, if council wanted to talk about it as under other considerations, we certainly can. Yeah.
Yeah, so from what I understand, they had COVID dollars last year and they're falling off?
Yes, sir. They had the COVID funding. I don't know how far back it went. It's for a few years, and it was about $90,000, and the city was giving that to them. And
It was
they were-
assigned to us, and we assigned it to them, right? They
Yes,
didn't
ma'am.
get it straight from the feds.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's correct. Joe Pantarin, Assistant City Manager. That COVID funding started in FY 2022.
Have your questions been addressed, sir?
Well, I'm just, so that's not an option for us to consider funding for the airport? I mean, the
What do you mean?
COVID funding? Is it not available anymore is
It's
what I'm
gone.
asking?
It's gone, it's
I'm
spent.
asking.
Yes, sir. So beginning this year, that funding is gone. It's not like the other ARPA funding that we had that continued through December of 2026. This funding expired last fiscal year.
And just for a reminder of everybody in the room, I wasn't here last year, so
Sure,
it's
sure,
cool that I
yeah.
ask questions.
Yeah, it is.
And you should.
Yeah. Is that okay?
But now they've been answered and, but you said yes. I've got you down as a yes. Ms. Rodriguez? This is a fund balance.
Yeah, I'd just be interested to see what, like the 30, 60, 90 that you were talking about and just the general policy of it. But I support the idea.
Okay. And when we bring back this for next month, we can include that, what that looks like.
Okay, and Mr. Scott has said yes, and I say yes, so we're all yes on that one. And so the next one is about the property tax revenue.
Yes, there have been discussions about keeping the property tax generated at the airport, just reinvesting it into the airport. And due to the general fund's challenges, that has been deferred. And so that's the question, do we defer that until fiscal year '28? It's roughly $300,000. So if we were to keep it at the airport, then that $4 million number we showed you, the general fund would be $4.3 million. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we at a point to answer the question, Mayor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I mean, we could discuss it, but at some point I'm going to ask you for an answer.
yeah, I'm going to defer, just given the structural deficit that we're facing. I'm not trying to deepen, that financial imbalance at this point. And so, I'm okay, I mean, I'm not okay, or I'm okay with deferring. I'm not okay with addressing this at this moment.
Okey-doke. You got yours yes. Mr. Paselk?
Were we asking the same questions, establish a fund balance requirement?
No, second one, property
Okay,
tax.
deferment.
Basically, this says, are we going to keep doing what we've been doing
Yes.
for another couple of years?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
No. Yeah, keep doing what we've been doing, I guess.
Ms. Garza? Ms. Garza says yes. Mr. Scott says yes.
Personally, I want them to become self-sufficient. I'm going to vote no on this one. I don't want it
You're a
to
no?
be deferred.
Oh, but go back and notice that they have finally become self-sufficient. I might feel differently if we were still,
Well, because I see them going this route, I think it should stay.
looky right here.
I know, but since we're going that route of profiting, doing well, I think it should stay in there instead of having it come back to
It
general
should stay
funds.
in there.
That's what I want to happen. I want it to just stay, everything, all the property tax, like we do have with TERS. I'm just trying to get it just to be.
Right now, it's in the general fund.
Yes,
So if
ma'am.
you're saying stay in, it stays in the general
I-
fund,
I
which is
prefer
not
it
what you
to-
said earlier.
I prefer it to go into being, not in general funds. I'd rather it just be with the airport, but that's how I feel right now. I don't want to
Okay,
defer.
so you're a no.
Yeah.
I'm a yes. So that's 5-1. Other considerations at the airport. I had a question, and I'm going to go back to where you're talking about revenues. It says revenues are held flat.
Yes.
Why are we holding revenues flat?
Just with our discussions with the Texas Aviation Partners, they felt like there have been they've recently negotiated some of the leases there, and just to be conservative, they wanted to hold those flat in the forecast.
Okay, that was my question. Did we not add some hangars?
Yes, there have been.
Are we charging for those hangars?
They're private hangars, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, so we didn't add them, someone else added them?
yes, ma'am, yeah.
Okay. All right,
We had ground leases.
We have ground
Which do
leases,
not
yes.
generate as much revenue as the facility leases.
right. We used to build them and then rent them out. Okay, so, next slide.
It's our last fund, the transit fund. And the transit fund is funded primarily from federal and state grants. 70% approximately comes from that funding source, and the general fund contributes about 30%. So for the transit fund, the forecasts show revenues increasing by 3% annually. Federal and state funding reduced by $213,000 in fiscal year '27, and is estimated to be by $350,000 beginning in fiscal year '28 forward. So the general fund's contribution increased by that 213 in '27, and it'll increase to 350,000 beginning in '28 forward. On the expense side, personnel and operation expenses will increase by 3% annually. So just based on that, everything pretty much stays the same as you go through, where they have a balanced budget. The spike in fiscal year '26, as a reminder, that is from a grant for buses that the city received. And so that's why you see a spike, and then it comes back down to $3 million. And there's really no decision points, just if there's any considerations that council has for the transit fund.
Anything new, things we haven't talked about before?
No, other than, I guess, one decision point was that graph from earlier, the 350,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, that 350, that impacts the general fund more because it's an expense to the general fund. So council giving us guidance on that resolves the issue on this side.
Thank you.
All right,
And
next slide. Okay, council.
Good job, Mr. Locke.
Oh, thank you.
No, seriously, thank you to staff, everybody, the entire finance team.
Okay, this is a big thank you to everyone, all the staff. Times are tight, and I know it's hard when you can't replace people, and you can't buy stuff, and you can't do programs that you like. So thank you all for your participation and your assistance as we work through a rough year and a down year. But thank you all. And thank you in advance as you go through the budget building process this year, because that's probably not going to be fun either. So anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Reyes, all your staff. And question and answer session with press and public. Any press and public care for question and answer? If so, now's the time. Did anybody sign up? Okay. We do.
Was I supposed to sign up?
Yes, you're supposed to, but we'll give you 3 minutes, microphone.
Oh, if this is a comment or a question?
This is question and answer about the budget is what this is for.
Oh, man.
And you have 3 minutes, that we will not go back and forth during that 3 minutes. 3 minutes, just get all your questions out
Whew, okay,
about the budget for next year.
great. Have I started yet?
It starts when you state your name.
My name is Laura Benavides, and my questions, page 47, and some of these may be answered during university that I will be attending. Page 47, what's the agreement with the school district? Page 48, where can I find the conditional use permit committee meetings? Page 50, what is
Ma'am, what are you looking at that you're giving us page numbers? Because that's not in this
The packet?
presentation.
The packet that's out there, and I think you guys have been displaying that.
CUP is mentioned on one of those slides.
Okay.
That was mentioned as part of planning's impact.
Yeah.
When they share.
Okay. All right, I'll give you a few more seconds.
I appreciate you.
If you'll give us those again, page what?
So the first one was 47, what's the agreement with the school district? 48, where can I find the conditional use permit committee meetings? Page 50, what is police community outreach, or I suppose where can I find that information? 55, really was looking for some background information on the success rate. Do we have a survey? Page 60, what is the affordable housing, I think it was on a spreadsheet. What does that do exactly? And 68, is there a specific amount that's being allotted to historical sites? Is there a specific committee for that? Page 70, are there specific amounts per support item? For 73, who made the decisions on, I believe there were two. Sunset was kind of the main focus on that. Also, are we practicing horticulture? And I think this is all still on the same page. Can we, rather than putting up fencing or beautifying 35, construct sidewalks on 123 between Wonder World and the high school instead? Also, who makes the adoption determinations? And that's it. That's all I've got. So thank you for your time. Good questions.
So, Ms. Reyes, is this something that y'all can respond?
Yes, we'll need to go back and listen to all the
Right.
questions and then respond.
Okay. All right, well, some of it we did discuss about the historic. We had pretty full discussion here, and she's not listening, so I guess we will move on.
What I will say is we will have the participatory budget process too. And so as far as like the sidewalks and things like that, those are things that can be provided as part of that. And we also will be having some town halls for the budget process, which we'll get those promoted as well and include in our overall budget calendar for when those points are going to be.
And I would ask, when staff gives Ms. Benavidez answers to her questions, perhaps CCing us? Thank you. And thank you to
Okay.
her for being here.
Anyone else? If not, I'm going to adjourn us at 9:26.